or affirm any testimony you will give before this board in any matter during the 2019-2020 session of the zoning board of adjustment. The truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just one thing.
That is good. Good evening, Ms. Berger.
Can you use your mic, please?
Yes, I can use my mic. Can you hear
Thank
me?
you so
Can
much.
you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I hope everyone had a lovely summer. We're here this evening to continue with the cross-examination and testimony of our witness, Mr. Lydon. He was previously sworn. I don't know if you'd like him sworn in again, but he was sworn. He's continuing.
Yeah, Mr. Lydon, I'm going to remind you that you're under oath of your prior testimony. I think it was last year, it was in June.
June 20th. Thank you.
Before we do that, Ms. Berger, I believe I received amendments to the application in my package.
So I'd like to ask Mr. Lydon to talk about that. Mr. Lydon, did the chairman ask a question last meeting about, I'm trying to find them, about the applicants presenting an alternate plan?
Yes, you did, at the very beginning of the hearing.
And unfortunately, we had to say, no, we did not have one last time, correct?
That is correct.
But we do have one tonight.
We've been busy beavers.
And that plan has been circulated to the board and the board's experts, is that correct?
Correct.
And that plan answers the chairman's question, is that correct?
It answers the chairman's questions affirmatively, yes.
And it answers the chairman's question in two different matters, is that correct?
Yes, it does.
Could you please explain how it answers the chairman's question?
Certainly.
And maybe we'll mark the documents?
Berger, I was going to ask Mr. Lydon to at least identify it.
Yes.
Sure. Quick background, this application was submitted with 100 on-site parking spaces, and an ancillary part of the application was the applicant had agreed to pave a Township of Teaneck lot across the street, across State Street, and make that available for public parking. The
44.
for 44 parking spaces, and that was going to be at the sole cost of the developer as a part of this application. The board expressed some reservations with that parking supply, so what has happened is we used the hiatus from the June 20th meeting to prepare two exhibits. The first one I'd like to talk to is identified as drawing A-202B, and it bears a division date of August 20th, 2019. What this shows, that was prepared by RSC.
And so we're going to, I believe we're up to A20. I'm just looking at the transcript, the last thing you marked was A19, so I'm going to mark that as A20, and that's sheet A202B, Mr. Lydon?
Yes.
A202B. Yes.
He is a boy.
Yep.
And what this shows is a expansion of the on-site parking facilities, increasing the total number of on-site spaces from 100 to 113. And it does that by extending the upper level parking area closer to the rear line on the east side of the property. So what will happen is, instead of, if this is approved by the board, instead of having 100 on-site parking spaces, the applicant is proposing 113 parking spaces on-site, 44 across State Street at the municipal property.
And with regard to those additional parking spaces, 13, are they single spaces or are they tandem spaces?
We added single spaces behind previously proposed, so that the new spaces are in a tandem arrangement. And those will be assigned to two-bedroom apartments. So it will function as a single-family house with a one-car wide driveway. If you have two cars in there, someone's got to move the first car to get the second car out.
But 2 keys.
Or 5. They will be assigned to two-bedroom apartments, of course.
Just to be clear, you're now talking about the drawing marked semi-extension alternative?
Yes. Correct.
Well,
And if you look in the right-hand corner, it says A202B.
and the drawing title, just to be
Are you,
specific,
what's your
Mr.
intention
Mr.
of giving us these two drawings?
Well, let us explain and we'll,
That drawing you just made reference to, so the record is clear, is titled Upper Level Parking Plan.
Okay.
The second drawing, which you jumped the gun on me, Mr. President, is identified as A202A.
Let me guess, it has 125 spaces.
I can leave now. That plan is also dated August 20th, 2019, and was also prepared by Arvis City Architects. And what this does,
Ms. Berger, A21.
yes.
and the difference between these two plans is this extends that upper level parking deck along the entire rear line of the building, and instead of adding 13 additional parking spaces to the previously proposed 100, it adds 25.
And
Remind me again, how many two bedrooms do we have in this
Yes.
project as proposed?
That's my outline.
38.
Okay,
Correct, 38.
38 two bedrooms.
Which one are you advocating for? Which one are you proposing? Do you have to choose one over the other? Or
Well,
what's your intention?
Mr. Rosa, because I believe in the prior testimony that these stalls really are not necessary for development, I think the board would be well within its authority and power and wisdom to approve the first drawing, 100. However, because we're practical people, we are willing to do either one of them. The one with 113 or the one with 125. However, we do believe the 100 spaces is adequate and appropriate and reasonable.
I understand the question.
If I could just, does the expansion of the parking deck require an additional variance?
Yes, there's a slight increase in the building coverage, of course, and the back wall is 14 feet higher than it would have otherwise been, and it's closer to the rear property line.
I personally find it hard to make a choice. I see what you're doing, I thank you for it. But and I would imagine my colleagues on the board need to make a decision on 1, 2, or 3. I can't make a decision on the submitted one, knowing that this is in your back pocket, so I'd like to know what you're advocating to this board and what you want us to decide upon. It's not fair to us to say we're going to choose A, B, or C. Which one is the one that you're presenting to us for consideration?
Well, we are presenting both because there was a question from the chairman, and we are showing you two different drawings because, frankly, there is a variance required now because of lot coverage. One has more open to the other building next door, where we eliminated that parking. That's where there's a smaller residential building on one side than the larger apartment complex. So we thought the board might want that because clearly there's a higher wall that has to surround that level. And we thought if that was a consideration of the board and the impact that they might want to see that alternative.
Well, short of canvassing this board and saying which one we want, which we're not going to do, and I am appreciative of the effort to do this. It's still a matter of which application, which rendering are you going to ask us to consider? Do we want to stick with your original application, or are you going to say we're going to take I don't know how to judge this in the long run. Maybe you can explain.
Let me help you. I think it was my suggestion to see that since there was an expert in this matter, an architect, who indicated to us that 125 spaces were able to be placed at the premise. And I think
And that was correct, that was the question.
and that was a testimony. I held them to it. I said, okay, make the plans in a way that we can get maximize the parking issue, the spaces, maximize the efficiency and removing an additional parking requirements that would otherwise spill over into the streets. And at the same time also made a arrangement with the township that in order to, as part of this approval, to pave and to prepare the lot across the street as a concession or as a package deal.
Under RSIS.
Right. To make sure that would also happen. So I am very pleased that he's the applicant in this instance volunteered to provide as much parking as required, and thereby we basically eliminated what 134 was required according to the
132, Mr. Chairman.
132. So we are 7 spaces off.
And that's without even counting the street parking, which you can do for RSIS.
I understand that. And in light of that, and I think in light of the testimony that Mr. Lydon indicated, that actually people living in apartments like this close to public transportation, it might not even be necessary to have necessarily the 132 spaces. I think a good planning, because everything around of these other multi-family residential buildings have, other than the new ones that have the old stock, have no parking whatsoever. So I want to be extra cautious when we put a grant a variance for a building like this, that there's no spillage, there's no utilization of other people's parking spaces outside this property. And everybody knows if you have a reserved spot under your apartment, you're not going to run around and try to find parking on the street or fight for that, or when there's snow that has to be removed, there has to be, when cars locked in after the snowplow has been there. So people are going to utilize their own parking area as much as they can. And it's very convenient. You come in, you don't have to worry about finding a spot. So I welcome certainly, and I think it's a good resolution. It's a good proposal to maximize as much as they can with 125 spaces on the premises for the parking. And so if the applicant is offering that, I'm sure it has maybe an additional cost. That's not my worry and my concern, or our concern, but certainly it lends itself to, I think, a better utilization of the space or purpose of getting to the ultimate goal, and I think also it lessens the impact on the street for purpose of parking and stuff. So I think that's if that answers your question.
You explained why, and I understand it, but I just want to know in the final submission, are you going to submit the one with the extra 25 spaces, or are you going to stand on your original application and ask them to consider? That's all I'm asking.
No, I think the applicant, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Berger, the applicant saying, if we are willing to put 125 parking spaces on this lot, and I say thank you.
Then I will accept that offer, and I believe we're all now considering the updated offer with another 25 spaces.
Clearly, the applicant felt that we had sufficient parking when we came in with our rendering and the 44, because we met the code requirement and we met RSIS requirement of that proposal. It appeared that some of the board members felt differently and felt that we should present an alternative. So we did. We presented the 125, which we testified to. We had it show a diagram that reflected the testimony, and that's what it did. But we also thought at the same time, maybe it might be wise to bring something that showed a little less, because we would cut down on the coverage, and that's what we
I
did.
get that completely. I just want to know what in the end, when it comes time for us to consider this application, be it tonight or future meetings, what is the application? Is it the amended one with the extra 25? What are you ultimately asking us to consider?
Perhaps, maybe I can help, Berger. If the board were to take a vote tonight, would you want the motion to be on A202 as A21, A202B, or or the original plan?
Well, I mean, we
We're
really,
not gonna play that game.
We will consider an application as submitted or amended. We're not gonna sit here and go.
we would like you to consider 125.
Okay, sure.
Except we would also ask that you then amend the application to the variance necessary, because now we have building coverage and increases the building
But
coverage.
what is the building coverage increase? Do we have that?
Yeah, we have the number.
Okay.
We can get to that, but.
But okay, it's the minimum compared to what we have now.
Right, but it does, it's a requirement.
Can you just clarify something? Janet, I think you mentioned something about 132 and only being 7 off now. I thought that we didn't need a variance for parking to begin with, so what's that?
That's without considering the lot across the street and without considering the street parking.
The street parking across the street that they were that there are, if this application is approved, pave and stripe and prepare, I believe had 44 spaces.
Correct.
Right, and I understood that, but I had always thought that across the street was not factored into what was required. So I thought the property in and of itself was fine on parking.
No, because there's a regulation called RSIS that says you can meet that parking requirement with certain other parking in the area, and that's so that there's just, you don't have a lot of parking lots that are not being used, and more people can share. That's really the reason for it. And that's why we're doing the lot across the street. So, we need to give numbers.
Yes.
But I thought your engineer wants to add something.
There's another piece of relief that I think Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up that the drive aisle under the new amended condition is 22 feet wide, the RSI requires 24, so that would be a de minimis exception.
We're going to get to that, let's do the variance.
And also that a tandem parking space doesn't have aisle. Does those, for instance, space
Yeah,
120.
I guess technically, yeah.
And tandem isn't allowed, but we're going to go into it, so.
Well,
Because
we're-
it's a second
right.
too.
Yeah.
What we don't know now.
But the RSIS, it says if you have a parking space, you're supposed to have 24 feet to back up. It
Right.
doesn't discuss tandem parking.
But it doesn't have the drive-through, so. Fine.
Okay, so it's 125, the application.
Right.
And let's hear the variance increases.
The parking coverage goes, increases by 14% if we include a 25 additional parking spaces. And for numbers, it goes from 65.8 to 79.4%.
What is that?
That's with the second plan with 25.
Coverage?
Well, coverage goes from 65.8
The coverage is the same.
to 79.4.
No, the building coverage.
Why are you using the
Over it, but Mr. Melfi made a determination that we would still need to increase the building coverage.
You haven't changed the building.
That's correct.
Because the parking below is not considered above grade, so therefore it's not counted in the building coverage. Now we're,
That's a technicality. Basically, the footprint is gonna be the same.
Right.
It's a,
but that explains, and also the wall height,
The wall height in the back increased by about 14 feet.
why?
it varies.
To add the second level, but there is some variance there, and that's on the worst part of the other places are less. Where they
Grading.
driving to the land.
Does it go from approximately 5 feet up to approximately, I think it's 13 or 14,
That's the number is.
depending on the slope of the.
Depending on where you are.
Just for the record, so that you have the numbers in that.
So these percentage increases, it's not really a percentage increase. The building footprint is the same. It's just a different way of calculating it, which
And
doesn't.
But Mr. Malfi said that.
Okay,
He
fine.
made that determination.
It's easy for Mr. Melfi, he's not here tonight.
He's very sick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sick of this application.
The more further on it, the application remains the same.
Okay, next.
That was the addition to the testimony we were in, the portion of the proceeding where there were questions by the public.
Okay.
This was to answer your question, and we didn't have the
Good.
information last time.
All
So
right.
I'm gonna move my stuff to the podium so the public can come back.
Okay,
Continue, unless any of your experts have anything on this stuff.
okay, let's, any experts have anything to ask Mr. Lydon about these 125 spaces that is now a part of the application? Anyone from the board have any questions regarding this 125? Okay. All right, so let's do the following. The public wants to ask Mr. Lydon some questions. Please do not repeat your question from last time, if you had an opportunity last time. And just please stand, get in line so we can, move this along. And let's see if we can get questions from Mr. Lydon. Good evening, ma'am. Come on up, tell us your name, please.
Denise Belcher, 703 Cedar Lane. I just have a question.
Oh, one second, slow down.
Just gotta write it down.
703 Cedar Lane.
How are you?
I have a question.
I'm sorry, maybe you want to just put that a little higher. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes.
Get closer to it, almost like too
Okay,
close.
yes,
Yeah,
no problem.
that's good, yes.
Yes, okay, great. Regarding the new proposed 125 spaces, I understand, based on your testimony, that the footprint remains the same, but how does it impact the height of the building?
Well, let's show you the plan so you know what we're talking
It
about.
doesn't really impact the height of the building because the parking extended to the rear at one level, and that was almost subterranean in some areas. So the parking in the back of the areas will be.
Can we have a little quiet in the
will not
back?
impact-
One second, Mr.
impact the
Lydon.
building.
Mr. Lydon, I think our microphones are picking up chatter in the back.
I'm sorry.
It's very important that we just keep everybody quiet in the back so the recording works and we have a good record and doesn't disturb the court reporter.
Your microphone's to the left.
I really don't want to.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, ma'am, did you get your answer?
It would not affect the height. The new proposed 25 spaces would not affect the height of the building.
That's correct.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening. Questions for Mr. Lydon?
Hi,
Hi, your name, please.
Deborah Eliyahu, Eliyah.
Good evening.
Good evening, all of you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, everybody else. On May 16th, page 109, line 17, and again on page 109, line 23, you refer to conditions in the city when speaking about conditions as they relate to Teaneck. For example.
Hold on, what page again?
Page 109,
What transcript?
May 16th.
May 16th,
Page what?
109,
109.
lines 17 and 23. You speak about traditional city lots, for example. Are you, when planning this, are you fully aware that Teaneck is a suburban township? And the development in Teaneck needs to be appropriate for a suburban environment?
Yes.
You then go on to discuss how an odd-shaped lot in the city, which may require many adjustments in a crowded and cramped city environment, could affect a building proposed in an area. How does that affect a building proposed in an area with low-density, multifamily residences?
I don't think that's what I was referring to.
Well,
What page are you reading from?
same page,
109?
yes. You said how they need to adjust to the kind of lot that they have.
What I was referring to, and you did it poorly, was a lot oftentimes will provide the shape for a dwelling. So on a 50-foot wide lot, you usually have a narrower dwelling that's longer, because a 50-foot wide lot usually has 100 feet depth. What I was doing was contrasting that with this lot. This particular lot has a depth of, bear with me, a depth of only 115 feet, but it's 300 feet wide. So instead of having a somewhat narrow but long building, this building flips that model and is wider but narrower.
Okay.
So I was trying to just relate it to the property that it sits on.
Okay. You've mentioned affordable housing numerous times. I counted 19. If you'd like me to tell you all of them.
No, go ahead. We believe you.
Are you aware that affordable housing applications are not only open to Teaneck residents and not 5 towns, but 5 counties
Let me.
in a heavily populated area, thus making it somewhat unlikely that Teaneck residents would be accepted?
Let me say this, I don't think this is the witness for that issue as who get picked as a third party, and this is how it works, and I don't know why, I agree with you, it should be, if there's a public, low-income housing and people live in Teaneck, they should have a preference, but that's not up to me or to you.
I understand,
So-
however, Mr. Lydon was putting this forth, I counted
Right,
19
let me-
times, as a great benefit
Yeah.
to the residents of Teaneck.
No, it's a great benefit to the public at large. That's what it's about. It's about doing, I guess, the wisdom of having low-income housing, so everybody has an opportunity to have a good housing stock for affordable price, and it benefits everyone. So let me explain to you how it works.
I know how it works.
Okay, but I don't think this witness can explain why the legislators and the courts, in their wisdom, make this rule the way it is.
I understand, and I agree, and I think there should be affordable housing. It just sounded to me like it was being expressed as a great benefit to Teaneck residents who needed affordable housing.
So as Mr. Lydon, when you refer to affordable housing, did you specifically mean that the affordable housing would be something that would benefit only Teaneck residents?
Or mainly Teaneck residents.
In a legal sense, you're both correct in the sense that you have to have a lottery. There are a lot of ways to run a lottery, and you can do it so that the people who are most likely to respond to a lottery are local housings, a family member living in town, or they lived here themselves at one time, or there's a work connection. It does need to be affirmatively marketed throughout the region, and I'm sure Teaneck and its administrative agent will do that, but you can still run a lottery so that the probability of having a high percentage of township residents accepted in that building is quite high.
But I guess that's not up to the applicant either. I know, I heard that over on Avalon, there was 8,000 applications, 34 apartments. That's ridiculous.
That just shows you the need.
Yep, I agree.
I just wanted to make
Sure.
it clear.
Thank you.
What year was the building on 100 State Street purchased by your client?
Early 60s, I believe it was something like
No,
60.
not by your client.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know.
On June 20th, page 171, lines 4 and 5.
Could you give us a second? We have to pass that
Okay.
over to
What page again?
Page 171, lines 4 and 5.
Well, that's middle of a sentence.
Well, I will explain.
Well, why don't you ask, why did you, okay,
You called it a blight. I'm just
okay.
trying to focus on the word blight.
Yeah, but you have to,
I was describing the existing building.
Okay. Are you aware that until 2016, its condition was really quite good? Maybe obsolete, but it was not overgrown to the extent that it is today. Did its intentional
one
neglect?
question at a time.
No, well, this is
Okay,
bundled.
fine.
Did its intentional neglect made it the blight that needs to be replaced?
I can't answer that question.
Okay. On June 20th, on page 27, line 7,
Hold on.
oh, I'm sorry, page 80, line 15 is this part.
80, line 15. Go ahead.
You were asked whether or not you were aware that Senator Weinberg had a New Jersey Transit Bus Board to discuss in Teaneck public transportation. And you said, no, I missed that. Have you attempted to find out about the forum held with Senator Loretta Weinberg and the representative from New Jersey Transit earlier this year?
No,
Do you know who Michael Kilcoyne is?
no,
Do you know who the vice president and manager of bus operations at New Jersey Transit is?
no,
Do you know who Paul Wyckoff is?
no,
Do you know who's the chief of government and external affairs in the office of the president and CEO of New Jersey Transit?
can't say that I do.
Okay. You also said on June 20th, page 27, line 7, and I have copies for the, well, I'm going to ask to enter this as evidence.
No, this is how, let me help you. It's a page, what, 27?
Yes, but I have a response from New Jersey Transit.
Well, you know, here's this is a question of this witness. If you want to bring New Jersey Transit and testify, more than welcome.
I have the response from
Yeah,
the office of the president.
So, we can only have a live witness that can talk. A piece of paper cannot say much. But so, if you want to bring a witness to oppose this application or bring something forth in your either furtherance of the case, or I guess in this case maybe opposing the case, the applicant's application, then you got to bring a witness.
I cannot bring the president of New Jersey Transit. However, I have a response.
Yeah, but I understand and I appreciate you got a letter back. But that's not really, we cannot, the applicant, in fairness of the applicant, you bring something and it says, the sky is blue. Because it says in the letter, he answered the sky is blue on Tuesday. The applicant cannot cross-examine and says, maybe, where were you at this?
Sworn in.
I'm sorry?
I'm willing to be sworn in.
Yeah, but that doesn't help. You can't ask questions, but the person who wrote the letter had the intent, or the person had maybe they were talking about something else.
If you hear this...
Okay, wait a minute, one
Sorry.
person at a time. Not because you and I cannot have a conversation, but there's a lovely lady sitting to my left there, and she can only take down one person at a time. So, those are the rules of evidence. And we can't do anything about it. So, but that's the process. And, if you need to bring a witness, you can bring a witness. And I think maybe if you want to have something included, you can maybe read it at the comments at the end of the case, if you feel that is the appropriate time for that. But in order to have it entered in the case as to counter something or to use it, you need a live witness.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Is it
Sure,
possible...
Counsel, I'd also like to add.
I have a question now.
Hold on one second. Counsel.
And to supplement what Chairman Myers said, there's a case, I don't know if Mr. Berger's looking
Yes,
for, an ex.
I have it Seabird versus Dover Township.
Well, there's also Exxon versus Burgersville.
Yes, that was going to be my next one here.
There's a case involving a gas station in Burgersville, and an objector brought in a written document and asked the board to consider it. The board did consider it, the board denied the application, and the applicant appealed the decision, and the court said the board was out of its jurisdiction to consider a written document that the applicant couldn't ask questions about to its own.
I think that it may be, I don't know, I haven't asked the office of the president and CEO of New Jersey Transit to come here. I can try to do that. Would it be acceptable if he would directly send correspondence?
Because they cannot cross-examine such a person.
Here's the example. If the applicant presented a written testimony from its planner saying, here are the reasons why you should grant a variance, and the public wasn't able to ask the questions of the planner, that wouldn't be fair. That's the same position that you're putting the applicant in by saying, here's this letter from New Jersey Transit with whatever fact we want to establish. That's the legal problem that is being posed by the attempt to offer this as evidence.
So why don't you ask
Okay.
Summary, well, I'll give you a trick. I'm gonna help you. So you have something that the person, I don't know who it is, wrote. So why don't you put that in a question, are you aware, Mr. Lydon,
Okay.
that blah, 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 and then he have to say the yes or no.
Okay,
May I,
thank
just
you.
before you proceed, I'm going to put an objection on the record because the objection is the questioning has to be on his direct
We're
testimony.
gonna give a little.
His direct testimony was that he had no knowledge of this.
Okay, but
And
I will
if
put
I
it on
may,
his
I-
One
direct
second,
testimony.
Ms. Eliyahu, one second.
And
When did
I
Ms. Berger wanna put something on the record?
I
She has
understand.
every right to do that, and then I will deal with it.
Also, I'm going to ask the board, as I understood, there is a policy of limiting the amount of time of each question.
No, that's only on good welfare, which we get to sometime when we're done with the application.
But, you know, I know to.
But it has to be relevant. I will agree with that. It has to be relevant questions. If Mr. Lydon hasn't testified
And he
about
had no
this.
knowledge of
once-
it?
And, well, that's one way to ask.
Let's let the
Do
question
that's
be
the
asked.
question, and then you can object. Put your objection on the record if it's relevant. I'll rule on it.
Okay, thank you, and thank you. On page 27, line 7,
The same.
same date, June 20th, Mr. Lydon stated, as we try to move commuters out of cars and off the carbon cycle, we need to,
Where?
27, line 7.
That's not what it
That is
says.
not
It
what
says,
it
and I think it's wise not to overlook.
Yes,
the
I went a little
introduction
further
and
down.
17.
17?
I was
Page
trying
27, line
to
7.
make it a little faster. I think it's wise not to overlook the introduction of new housing units close to businesses, which I can support those businesses, as I mentioned earlier, and also public transit. There are literally bus stops in State Street right in front of this development. There are additional bus stops on Teaneck Road, which do provide express turnpike services to New York City during rush hour. So as we try to move commuters out of cars and off the carbon cycle, we need to provide reasonable alternatives for them to commute to work. And having a bus stop right at the doorstep literally achieves that purpose.
Question.
Okay. But it ties in with the next citation. And then you were asked on page 80, line 15, you mentioned the proximity of public transportation, and I was wondering if you were aware of the ability for the public transportation in the area to absorb any additional people, commuters to New York City, and your answer was, it can. It can do that because New Jersey Transit has the ability to adjust routes and adjust locations of bus stations, and that is part of their reason for existence, and they do that on a regular basis. Now, my question is, are you aware that New Jersey Transit, Mr. Paul Wyckoff, and the Chief of Government and External Affairs, says, New Jersey Transit is highly constrained in our ability to provide additional bus service, and will provide
Mr.
this.
Lydon, are you aware of that?
Generally speaking,
Are you aware that he also says, we are,
Says where?
in response to these,
In response to what? I object to the,
You know, you can say, are you aware that the New Jersey Transit is
Okay.
not able to
Okay.
accommodate
thank
things?
you.
Or
Thank you for clarifying how I need to say it.
You can't quote someone else.
Okay. Are you aware that New Jersey Transit is already operating as many buses as their staff and fleet can handle?
I am not aware of that as a fact, but were a fact, there is still ability to move assets and resources to underserved areas from less underserved areas.
Are you aware of the fact that they now have no more capacity at the Port Authority?
No, I'm not aware of that fact.
It's a hard question for Mr. Lydon to be aware of whether Port Authority. it's somewhat objectionable, but, you know, but we give you all the leeway we can.
Okay.
And, you know, I think the board here is smart enough to understand what is admissible evidence or what evidence is. Okay?
I tried to make my,
I understand, and you made a very well point, and a
Thank
good
you.
point, and I'm sure you did very well. So,
I'll see what I can do to get them here.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Yes. Did you make an effort to verify the veracity of your data, suggesting that only 6 children would reside in the building at one time, as you stated in response to a question by Mr. Rosen on May 16, page 144, line 18?
I'm going to object to the question because you're asking him to verify what he said under oath. So he made a statement under oath. He stands by the statements he makes under oath.
Okay. Do you have data on age distribution of tenants in suburban rental developments such as the proposed development?
Could you say that again?
Do you have data on age distribution of tenants in suburban rental developments such as the proposed development?
Not what we know, but there may be census data covering that.
Do you envision that a large percentage of the residents will be young couples or young families?
Depends on what you mean by large percentage. I don't think you'd see 85% of the people being young couples. I think you'd see a lot of people moving from Teaneck, the surrounding area. I think there'll be a cross-section of age groups.
Okay, thank you. What data do you have on the distribution of family size to number of bedrooms in multifamily units?
What's the question?
Where is it?
What data do you have on the distribution of family size to number of bedrooms in multifamily
I'm
units?
going to object because it's such a general question.
And how is that relevant to this application? The application talks about, the application is made of a certain amount of bedrooms, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and a certain amount of 3 bedrooms. And people, I guess, don't people, you know, I guess 9 people is not gonna come into a 1 bedroom, right? If you have 4 kids, you're not gonna go into a 1 bedroom, but you're gonna go into a,
No, but
maybe
I
a
was
3
wondering
bedroom.
how many people, let's say, who don't have children could move into a 3-bedroom? How many people that have, you know, 2 children who live in a 3-bedroom?
I don't think it's relevant, and I think also has something to do with how much money you have in your pocket, right? I mean, if somebody wants
No,
a
that's what I was
3 bedroom,
wondering.
I don't think
It's really
it's,
not relevant.
I don't think it's,
It's not an appropriate land use consideration.
Okay.
No, but now that I understand the question, now that it's been evolving a little bit, I was looking at census data because I thought she was looking for specific numbers. There may be specific census data numbers, I don't think so, but there's a publication that Rutgers put out in November 2018, which breaks down the term, which examines occupancy of different types of housing units. And they assign a generalized number to that unit. So if you have a 3-bedroom condo above market value, they would suggest to you that X number of people are going to live in there compared to a 1-bedroom rental apartment. And I used, to answer the question as an aspect, I used and relied on that data published by Rutgers that was published last year to estimate the number of, or to divine the number of estimated school-age children that the Rutgers data would suggest would live in this particular building.
okay.
Thank you.
It was a good question. Go ahead.
Thank you. On June 20th, page 46, line 12, in response to a question from Mr. Wetron,
Just wait a second so we get.
I'm sorry.
46.
Can I ask you about cars?
Okay, we're here.
You said, as far as autonomous vehicles, I think that that's going to happen. When it happens, it's going to reduce the amount of parking that a residential building will demand because I envision it being a service. Are you proposing this building on current conditions and current technology in use, or on what you envision it's on?
The building, in its original design, with 100 on-site spaces, had sufficient parking to meet the demands of that building, in my opinion, and the opinion of these engineers who have reviewed it. The point about autonomous vehicles was the number of vehicles that this building will demand, or the residents of this building will demand, is going to drop in the future, not rise. So I think this board can be very comfortable with the idea that the maximum amount of parking that's demanded by this building is going to happen when it first opens, and it will drop as the building ages.
I see.
Did that answer your question?
One of them, on page 48, line 12, also in response to a question from Mr. Wetron, you noted that there would not be charging stations for electric cars in the parking garage because of the cars in New Jersey, fewer than 1% are electric. What data do you have on how many self-driving cars or autonomous vehicles are currently in New Jersey?
Oh, there aren't.
Also, on page 46, line 24, he stated that with the advent of autonomous vehicles, it will reduce the number of vehicles people own and will reduce the need for parking in multifamily buildings. Since tenants are expected to move in before autonomous vehicles become the norm, how would you suggest that the parking, okay, you already answered that one with your new layout.
Next question.
Yes. Well, okay, this one is already, I'm going through things that were answered with the new plan. Now, is it conceivable that concrete planning for the possibility of widespread use of autonomous vehicles may be like planning for the future of hovercrafts they used across the English Channel?
I object to the question.
What?
It's not relevant to his direct
Well,
testimony.
His testimony was based on autonomous vehicles, and there are other crafts
So you're
that...
saying, are you advocating that should have less parking spaces?
No, what I'm saying is that to build on what may or may not be in the future is, and what doesn't exist today as a norm, is also kind of irrelevant. I've traveled on a hovercraft, don't find one today.
That's a mischaracterization of my testimony.
I think we're outside the scope of this.
Okay.
Let's try a little more focused, a little
Okay.
better. Let's focus on the key issues that have something to do with planning.
Okay. What data do you have on the ratio of people to cars in suburban areas like Teaneck?
Well, I think it's already discussed with respect to the ratio of required parking.
Okay.
I mean, I think we were just beating a dead horse.
Okay.
You know now there's a proposal of 125 spaces, where 132 is required.
Okay.
And his testimony, Mr. Lydon's testimony, says that you need even less, but you know, the standards are 132.
Okay.
Go ahead.
As far as lot coverage, what is your reason for justifying an increase of almost 400% over the allowable by zoning, aside from the fact that you simply want a much larger building?
We were asked to increase the amount of parking to meet a theoretical need.
What are your data on the environmental impacts of such an increase in lot coverage?
This is not, he's not an environmental engineer.
Okay. Is an increase of over 200% a customary deviation in building height Is it a customary deviation from the building code?
I'm going to object to the question. There's no relevance as to what's custom. The board doesn't vote on custom. We're here application
Sustain.
based on custom.
Next question.
Would this building height not cause the building to tower over its neighbors?
No.
Okay. Can you name other instances in which you have been granted variances where the property setbacks have been reduced by 50% as well as to zero in the same project?
Mr. Yao, I'm going to sustain the objection. Every application standard is small, so it's really not relevant. Mr. Lydon had a project he worked on in Morristown, and it received this application on that variance. It is not relevant to what we're here for today. Next question.
Okay. Have you or anybody else spoken with the neighbors behind the proposed building, particularly any longtime or elderly residents, about a building that will be located mere feet from their homes?
Just, it's not the appropriate person to ask that question.
Well, why
It's
not?
But I just wanted to add, if you were here at the first hearing, I put on the record that I represent the owner of the property behind this building, and they know about the whole project that was proposed.
But that's not the question. The question is, does Mr. Lydon speak to anyone who lives in Bound? Yes or no?
The answer is no.
Okay, next question.
What are the relevant data for such impact in suburban areas with low-density multifamily housing units on the long-term residents or elderly residents when such a building is
Do you know,
constructed?
Mr. Lydon?
I don't believe there is any such thing.
Okay, next question.
That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next person. Hi.
David Seller.
What's your name?
David Seller. You got my letters, right?
I do not get any other letters.
S-E-L-O-V-E.
Okay, Mr. Cello, you tried to call my office. I asked you, and you didn't get through to me. I would ask you not to call my office.
Okay, I did it because I sent a letter to somebody, John. The buildings department said you should send my letter to each of you.
We don't
Letter
accept
from John?
letters.
I got those letters.
You
And
got-
I'm not allowed to give them to the board. Any questions you have, or any comments you make have to come when the application appears. I'm not allowed to give that out. Just giving testimony or asking questions. Right.
It's nothing to do with the application.
Mr. Cello, if you want to send a letter to the board, send it to Ms. McLean, and she'll make a decision.
Well,
whether it's
Roger,
not-
you've got
If
the
it's not,
letters.
excuse me,
Can you forward it
excuse me, Mr. Cello,
Huh?
one person at a time, okay? Please. If you want to send a letter to the board, you can send all the letters to the board. We don't accept letters that have nothing to do with an application, or even if it has something to do with an application, you send it to the board secretary. Don't call my office. Don't waste my staff's time. It is highly inappropriate that you try to get to me and don't leave a message or anything and you want to talk to me. It is highly inappropriate, and I did not take your call. Please do not call my office ever again.
I was under the interpretation that you got a letter. I apologize.
Got no letters. I don't want to talk to you about applications. I don't want to talk to you about anything. If there's anything that has to be spoken about, it is in this form. Please follow
Okay,
those.
and I'll go through some of the details.
And the other rule is, please just have one person at a time.
Okay.
Please follow those rules. Don't call my office about anything to do with the board. Thank you.
Right.
What are your questions for Mr. Lydon?
It's not so much for Mr. Lydon as it is for you. And the board.
Wait, I object the.
Well, no, it's relevant. It's relevant. Just
No,
let me hear me out.
The issue is that there's a witness on who's testifying.
On his feet.
Okay, well, he may be able to answer the question.
Hold on. If you're going to ask questions to Mr. Lydon, that's appropriate. If you have comments for the board, that would be at a later time.
Then I'll phrase it as a question to Mr. Lydon and company. Have you ever considered projecting these drawings or these data in such a way that the entire audience can see the information, not just the first 6 people in the first row? All of the mass meetings that I've ever been to in my 40 years as a commercial banker, that data has been put up on the screen, and everybody gets to see the statistics and the pictures. Here we get to see nothing.
We present the evidence in the manner as required by the board.
They're available in the clerk's office, in the secretary's office.
People call in all the time, emails, say, can I come see the plans? Can I see the comments? I've given several people here a copy of the letter of refusal and all the comments that go along with the application. So if anybody, you've been in, so.
Right, but that's on a one-by-one basis. When you have the community at large looking at the information and trying to ask intelligent questions, it's really helpful to have the information in front of them, and rather than have 50 people or 100 people walk into Roz's office and look at the information.
I love it. Mr. Silo, next question, please.
You're familiar with the report of Mr. Preiss that you asked?
Mr. Lydon.
Which report?
There's a report that was requested by the Township by Phillips Preiss to discuss the effects of all the building in the area in the northeast section of Teaneck.
That wasn't my testimony.
It wasn't his testimony.
So you never saw that report?
It wasn't my testimony.
I know it wasn't your testimony.
You're supposed to ask questions about my testimony.
I'm asking you if you ever saw that report.
It wasn't about my testimony. That question has nothing to do with my testimony.
It has to do with the effects of your testimony
Okay, next
on
question.
the project. No, I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Next person, Mr. Rose. And the next person want to be, if there's any questions, may please stand behind Mr. Rose so we can move that along.
Good evening.
Otherwise, I assume that nobody else wants to ask anything. Sure, please, Mr. Rose.
Good evening. My congratulations regarding the organization meeting. It's nice to see a township board that has unanimous support for its elected officials. I'm speaking tonight as a resident, not as...
Howard Rose.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rose, R-O-S-E. I'm speaking as a resident, not as a member of the Board of Adjustment, nor as a member of the Teaneck Planning Board. And my question to you, sir, is, from your testimony, am I to understand that the town is acting as an agent leasing its property for the use of these potential, I guess it's 44 parking spaces?
I'm not familiar with the mechanism by which to occur.
Would it be a fair presumption that whatever the mechanism is, that it's in perpetuity for as long as the building exists?
I can't answer the question.
What is the impact in terms of the use of other spaces, the spaces that are required in addition to what you're providing, on the impact of neighbors should they in the future have a desire to increase the utilization of their properties for building purposes or whatever?
I'm not sure that's relevant to this.
He's not the traffic
Oh,
expert. He's a planner.
Oh, I thought that's part of planning. I apologize. I don't have a 6-page list of questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Next.
Alan Stone, S-O-H-N. Mr. Lydon.
Just one second, Mr. Stone. Anyone wants to speak after Mr. Stone? Okay. So just, thank you.
On May 16th, page 110, lines 9 through 11.
Would you give us a second to get that?
Absolutely. 116, line 10, or May 16th, page 110, lines 9 through 11.
Okay, we got it.
Quote, it's an old obsolete, and I call them dead office building. You continue on lines 17 and 18 stating that, quote, it's been abandoned by the marketplace. What, Mr. Lydon, when did it die? Who killed it? When was it, quote, abandoned by the marketplace?
Mr. Stone, you know that. One question at a time.
Well, one question.
Okay.
I'm not sure, and I don't know if it's necessarily relevant as to why it was abandoned by the marketplace. It is the current status of the property. There was testimony that it's not ADA compliant, and although I'm not an architect, my understanding is it's very difficult and expensive to bring non-ADA buildings into compliance.
When your client asked for lifting the deed restriction in April 2015, was the building still very much alive?
I don't know.
Um,
You weren't on council at that time, Mr. Stone?
Yes, I was.
So you know better about that than anyone else. Isn't that true?
I'm not questioning myself.
No, I'm questioning you because I'm asking you since
I'm
you
not
were...
under oath.
You're not on the oath, but that doesn't matter. You want to be on the oath? You can swear.
I could be.
But why you are asking a question, you know much more about it yourself.
Again, the question is not whether I know the answer.
I'm just
but
asking.
whether Mr. Lydon knows the answer.
I understand.
And that's why I'm asking the question.
Okay, go ahead. I'm also asking questions.
Please be quiet in the audience. I know you want to laugh and do everything.
Mr. Lydon, would it be safe to say that your client killed the functioning office building at 100 State Street? That your client abandoned the functioning businesses at the site, and now your client, the killer, wants exceptional levels of mercy in the forms of variance?
I'm going to object to the question. This is being argumentative.
Sustained. Next question.
Would you agree, again, that it was your client that was responsible for ending the functioning office building?
I don't know that that was true. I do know it was a non-conforming use. I do know it's an overbuild for EDA purposes.
You spoke about the 2007 master plan, again, including on May 16th, page 112, lines 5 to 9.
Yes?
And there was that. Sorry and there's a master plan that was prepared by the planning board in 2007. It explicitly called for encouragement and expansion of multifamily housing when there's no detriment to impacts on certain neighborhoods. It says single-family neighborhoods. Mr. Lydon, is it correct that your client wants to be allowed to be able to build a multifamily building because the 2007 master plan specifically encourages master plan, multifamily development?
I can't speak to my client's motivations.
This is in an RM zone, and your client, and you have testified that you're seeking to build in that RM zone.
Okay, that's true.
The section 3324 of the Township Code, the zone district requirements specify dwelling units per acre of 12, building coverage of 20%, lot coverage of 65%, and building height, principal building of 35 feet. Mr. Lydon, would you agree that if your client complied with the requirements established by the zoning ordinance, there would be no one in the audience? As a matter of fact, there would be certainly no variances needed.
I'm going to object to the question. He's talking about whether other people will be in the room and asking Mr. Lydon to make a statement on that.
I guess, Mr. Berger, if there was no variances, we wouldn't be here. It would be at the planning board, so.
We got to be in this room.
I think we're in agreement. Mr. Lydon, as you seek to remedy the functionally obsolete medical office building, why not comply with the RM zoning laws?
I don't understand the question. I don't understand.
They're asking for.
I understand.
They're asking for
Please
variances.
be quiet. Just speak when your turn comes.
Would like to explain the question?
In your May 16th testimony, again, page 113, line 6, you say that you improve economic vitality, and we quote, you put wallets on the street. You make a variant of the same statement a little bit lower down.
What page is that?
113, May 16th. Further down on lines 18 to 21, you say you put feet on the streets, wallets on the street. Mr. Lydon,
Let's get it in context. You can't just take two words out of it.
you can, but I'm just looking at the wallets on the street.
Yeah, but let's understand.
Sure.
Mr. Love, you can ask what you mean by that.
Mr. Lydon, what do you mean by that? And are all wallets created equal?
I'm objecting to that. Okay, that's, first of all, you wanna be smart about the questions, ask one question at a time and not a compound, which means two questions at once, because you can't answer that. So let's, Mr. Lydon, what did you mean about the wording that you said, feet on the street?
Yeah, real short history. Since the recession 2008 or thereabouts, and the advent of online delivery services, merchants, downtown, brick and mortar merchants, like Mr. Rose, well, I'm not talking about his business, throughout Bergen County in particular, have struggled. Our offices are in downtown Westwood. During the previous recessions before 2008, we never had vacancies. We still have vacancies from that recession. And Westwood is not dissimilar from Teaneck, from Rutherford, from Englewood, from Ridgewood. The merchants are under attack, if you will. Planners have been trying to figure out how to respond to the loss of economic vitality in the downtowns. One of the ways we're trying to make them more viable is by reinserting housing into downtown environments. And that offers a promise for being able to rehabilitate, rejuvenate these downtown areas. We happen to be about 300 feet from State Street. We happen to be about 900 feet or so from Teaneck Road to...
You mean Queen Anne?
Queen Anne Road, thank you. Not
Queen Anne on one side and Teaneck Road on the other side.
We happen to be have commercial developments in a traditional format on both sides of us in very close walking distances. So the idea of allowing more people, more wallets, may very well have an economic impact on downtown Queen Anne and Teaneck Road. Can I guarantee it? No. But it's something that planners are trying to achieve across the country. That's what I meant about the wallets on the street. It's an economic development tool.
Understood. On, again, May 16th, page 118, lines 2 to 3. You state that your rental vacancy rate is 0.6%. You don't have any vacant rental housing in this community. In the same vein, you repeat that on June 20th, page 51, lines 22 to 25. On June 20th, page 52, lines 1 to 2, Mr. Rosen replies to you.
Wait, that's not...
I'll wait.
One second, let's ask the question about Mr. Rosen.
Both of them are tied together.
We're kind of losing you, so if you could ask
I
questions.
can ask for Mr. Rosen, so let me have to ask Mr. Rosen what he said.
Mr. Rosen states, so that means about 20 apartments turn over every year. Is that right? To which you largely agree in lines 3 to 4. Is that correct? Is your testimony there?
That's what I'm trying to explain to you. We need a moment to look from one
Take
to
your time.
another.
So it is better not to rehab. Yes. If the testimony is one,
So
why are you trying to rehab and help the experts if you made a mistake to change it? I don't understand why you're asking questions like that.
So there's a question here and there was an answer. So are you asking him what his answer was? I'm not following, I'm sorry.
I don't understand.
I'm just confirming the calculation of the number of vacant units in Teaneck. It's
Well-
related to the vacancy rate.
The number he gave is the number of his testimony.
Okay?
And let me just explain that. That was from the American Fact Finder census data for 2017.
Could you be more specific?
Then telling you the date and the
Are you referring
publication.
to the Census Bureau American Community Survey for 2013-2017 DP04 table?
A very specific question, and I think it sounds right, and I'm trying to see if I brought that table with me tonight. And here's DP04, 2017.
Other housing
One
characteristics.
second.
You're gonna have to let him answer or talk, those two people at the same time. I don't know how she's gonna do it.
Yes, if I'm trying to answer your question, it asks it states for 2017, under housing occupancy, rental vacancy rate, and the estimate is 0.6%. And then Mr. Rosen, who's better than me in math, did some quick calculations, and they sounded right on the fly, standing after a long night of testimony. If they're wrong, I apologize.
we'll get to the question. And you
Well, wait,
indicated.
that's the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to question, not for making statements and reading the
I'm not,
transcript.
I'm not making a statement. On 128, lines 8 through 9, again, May 16th, you stated that there were 3,542 apartments. That also comes from that same DP04 ACS 2013 to 17 data.
So I object. You're making a statement. There is no question you've raised. Again, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
What is-
On May 16th, page 118, lines 4 to 5, you state, according to the U.S. Census American Community Survey, 5% is considered normal, healthy operating ratio or percentage.
Is there a question in our future anywhere?
If we have 3,542 rental units, how many more units would Teaneck need to get to the normal, healthy operating ratio or percentage of 5%?
I'm gonna object to the
I don't think
question.
that's a question for me.
So if I do the math correctly,
Well, I'm
then-
gonna object. There's no testimony from this witness. It's a period of time in which you're allowed to ask questions, not to be reading just the transcript back of the prior testimony.
based on data
I'm
from
gonna object.
the
Mr. Sohn, answer.
from the
I'm
master plan.
objecting again.
Okay, I haven't asked a question. Wait till I ask the question before you make this objection.
I'll,
Based on
Mr.
data
Sohn,
from the
Mr.
master
Sohn,
plan.
Mr.
It's
Sohn.
based upon his direct testimony, the question.
Okay, Ms. Berger, let me answer that. Mr. Sohn, try to phrase a real concrete.
I am.
No, you're not. Try to come up with a question that's real concise, that is tight, so the man can answer the question. Otherwise, you can do this all night and read the transcript again and again. And that doesn't serve you any point. It doesn't serve the citizens of this township any points, and it doesn't help us.
Given the 128 units under development that already completed at Teaneck Square, 228 at 1500 Teaneck Road, and 248 at Avalon Bay, and 36 at 140 State Street, that's another 640 units. Would that be adequate to meet the 5% ratio?
I object to the question.
Well, can Mr. Lydon answer the question?
Well, I think the question presumes that none of the occupied units will become vacant. And I don't know if that's a realistic assumption, and I don't know if I can possibly answer that question.
Okay, next question.
Next, again, and you state on May 16th, page 112, lines 19 to 20, that they also seek to strengthen the vitality of commercial districts. You have cited the 2007 master plan, which on page 19, objective 3, encourages the long-term vitality of commercial districts, encouraging the development of appropriately scaled multi-level mixed-use structures. The 2017 master plan reexamination, page 36, cites mixed-use development on State Street. Is there any mixed-use development in the building proposed at 100 State Street?
No.
On May 16th, page 132, lines 14 to 18, you state you've heard that the resolution requires that we restripe State Street. Right now, it's parallel parking spaces that would be 70 or so, and then a wide drive aisle both east and west. Resolution 218-2016, which is the agreement under which the parking lot would be developed, states in the third whereas clause that adds...
Wait a second, I'm not sure what you're reading from or what you're talking about.
Resolution 218-2016, which was introduced as an exhibit at the previous meeting.
Are you asking a question or you're making a statement?
The statement was made, again, Mr. Lydon said that there would be restriping of State Street done. The resolution states
Wait.
What resolution are we talking about? The one that
Resolution 218-2016
repayment and recondition of the property, is that Mr. Sohn?
includes and to lay out...
Mr. Sohn, is that-
Yes, and to lay out and restripe angled parking along State Street all at the developer's sole cost and expense.
So what's the question?
Will both of those be done as part of this project?
I think that's stipulated already. They will do what, that's the part of the agreement, Mr. Son. Correct?
There's
Yes.
been some questions raised whether that will be done.
No, there's no question. That's part of the application. They're gonna adhere to that resolution that you just discussed. And I guess the application at the moment, is for 125 spaces on the premises and the other things that they have promised over this application. So it's all inclusive. Believe me, I'm not, we're making sure that whatever they said they were gonna do, at least on this application, until we vote on it, will be what will be in the approval.
Mark, it would be appropriate to find out whether.
How long do you have, Mr.
Because
Son?
we need to take a break.
You have a court reporter needs to take a break.
Take it, just be
One question, two questions?
more than
3 questions?
3 questions.
Okay, so we'll take a break now. Thank you.
Based on your experience, do you know why, when there's such a compelling argument for this type of development, why towns don't change the ordinances so they can be used as opposed to having dead areas? On line 17 of that page, you respond, I think part of it is that the planning board is partly responsible for doing the master plan. And they have certain things they would like to say, typically to the plan use policy. There are a host of things where mayor and council need to review. First and foremost is the budget personnel. As borough attorneys will tell you, it takes some time for 2 things to happen. 1, to build a consensus, and 2, to go through the process. Mr. Lydon, are you arguing that the Township Council has been too busy to make changes to the master plan?
No.
Are you aware that 4 of the 7 current council members have served on the planning board?
No.
Are you aware that Yid Stern, a former council member here this evening, serves on the planning board?
Yes.
Are you aware that the mayor and 2 deputy mayors have an additional zoning subcommittee that meets privately with the planner and members of the planning board to consider zoning issues?
No.
Are you aware that since 2007, when our most recent full master plan was created, that there have been more than 300 council meetings, 150 planning board meetings, and other meetings of the zoning subcommittee,
Let him ask the question, finish the question.
where zoning and development are regular topics of discussion?
I object to the question, it has no relevance.
I understand it has no relevance. Do you know that?
Are you aware that...
Do you know that?
No.
Okay, next question.
You certainly are aware that since the 2007 master plan, there have been 3 re-examinations in 2011, 2014, and 2017. You've testified.
question?
Yes. Are you aware?
I'm aware.
Are you aware that in all those meetings, in all those re-examinations, which you testified you reviewed, the council and planning board have never backed off the long-standing specifications of the RM zone of 12 units per acre and 35 feet in height?
Objection.
I'm going to object.
I have a state objection. This is what council takes of action is no relevance to this witness.
On June, again, Mr. Lydon had testified regarding the planning board and the township council's inactivity. On June
That's a
20th,
mischaracterization of my testimony.
Okay.
I object to that.
on June 20th, page 55, starting on line 3, in response to Ms. Leheny's concerns about the size and scope of the project, you responded, quote, I would first say that the mayor and council have had an opportunity to zone the nearby properties, and when they have selected 70 feet as an appropriate number in some cases, a 70 feet building height. They have selected 5 stories as being an appropriate height, and density and impervious coverage are also similar. Mr. Lydon, the township council has looked at other nearby sites and has not changed those characteristics of the RM zone. Why should your client be granted variances based on rezoning and variances granted at other sites?
I'm going to object. I don't even understand what he's asking.
Mr. Lydon has cited the precedent of other buildings being approved at 70 feet. I'm questioning again, he is using that precedent as a basis for an argument for being granted this variance, And I'm questioning on what basis that precedent. Again, Mr. Meyer, you have stated that each application is looked at on its own merit. And Mr. Lydon has argued that the other approvals granted by this board should be used as precedent. That is the question I'm asking.
That's again a mischaracterization of my testimony.
So that's the answer. Listen, have you lost me there? When the first part of the question I thought was a good question, and then you totally lost me there. But I guess the witness understands the question and the answer.
You talk about Exhibit A19 on June 20th, page 17, on lines 15 and 16, where you describe, quote, the next photograph is 1475 Palisade Avenue. You cite this as one of several buildings that are as tall or taller than 100 State Street. Is that correct?
Yes.
1475 Palisade Avenue has 128 units on a lot covering 1.77 acres.
Are you testifying then?
Let me ask that question. Let him ask the question.
So it has 72 units per acre. With
Now you're testifying.
Now it's testifying.
Now you're testifying. Before you just stated a fact that it may be or may not be true, I don't know. Because you're not sworn, and this is the question from Mr. Lydon. This is a time for questions of Mr. Lydon and not of you. So let's try to be a little more pointy on your questions of Mr. Lydon, and a fair chance to at least answer your question.
While you use the building as a precedent for height, are your setbacks and density at 100 State Street consistent with other properties in Teaneck?
I think it's, well, if you can answer, I think it's highly objectionable question.
I don't think I can answer that question.
You cannot?
No.
Okay, next question.
Again, about that picture on page 20, in June 20th, line 17 to 25, Mr. Rosen asks, I get that. My question, what's the intent of this picture? What are you trying to state by this? And you respond, quote, I was showing that the introduction of height in the neighborhood is not a new phenomenon. You addressed height. Have you offered any evidence for density
Yes.
for this project?
Yes.
As precedent, other projects that are precedent for density?
But
You're mischaracterizing my testimony. I'm not offering them as precedent. I'm using them to describe the evolving nature of the neighborhood.
Mr. Lydon, I would argue that the statement...
no, you don't have to argue. If you have a question, ask a question.
Mr. Lydon, what is the difference between not a new phenomenon and precedent?
The precedent, first of all, I think that's an appropriate question.
But let's see if you can answer it.
The changing neighborhood is reflected in the buildings that are either built under construction or will soon be. The precedental value is saying, a board approved this application because of this. We have a similar situation. I get the same thing. That's not what I was testifying to, and I've never testified that way.
On June 20th, page 22, lines 3 to 5, you state the third reason is there are similar heights nearby. And I think this is an interesting portion of the testimony.
Wait.
Quote. Right, is that the quote?
That is a quote.
Okay, what's the question?
What's the question?
You have only focused on height. Again, do you have any corresponding properties to offer as comparables in this township based on density?
I didn't offer them as comparables, but I offered them as examples of changing neighborhood.
Again, has neighborhood changed in terms of density or only in height?
Oh,
Can you offer, you've offered examples of height. You've shown pictures of examples of height. Can you offer, or have you offered in your testimony any examples of projects that are as dense as this project is?
I'm sorry, yes.
And those are?
The answer back to the part of the first transcript, I testified on.
You're saying that you did testify that there are projects that have the same 86 units per acre.
Similar densities.
How do you define which projects are of similar density?
It's my testimony, I don't recall that one now. That was back in whatever month it was.
NJSA, and you referred to this, 4055D70 states that no variance or other relief may be granted under the terms of this section, including a variance or other relief involving an inherently beneficial use, without a showing that such variance or other relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and the purpose of the zone plan or zoning ordinance. Your client has asked for a density of 86 units per acre. The zoning ordinance would permit 12 units per acre. 7 times, more than 7 times the density permitted. Is that correct?
I got in trouble for agreeing with Mr.
Okay.
Rose's calculations earlier, so I'll say I don't know.
In your, given the precedent that this project would set, and given the future applicants before this board, just as you have, will cite the variances granted here, is it not correct that this project will indeed substantially impair the intent and the purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance?
I think it's first of all speculative, and then my definitive answer is no.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Powers? Go ahead. And then the lady.
It is Dr. Powers, yes, thank you.
Would you like to sit down?
I need a little more space if that's possible. Whose stuff is this?
That is mine. I've been here a lot of months and I accumulated.
I have as much as you do now.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Chuck Powers, I live at 1374 County Lane in Teaneck. I have a few questions for you, Mr. Lydon, beginning with your statement on the 20th of June, page 157, line 20 to 22. You're responding about what boards of adjustment do, and you say boards of adjustment, generally speaking, are fairly busy because there's nothing wrong with taking an application to a board of adjustment. In fact, that's why a board of adjustment was created, was to hear applications presented by developers. What evidence do you have for that statement?
I'm gonna object.
I think Mr. Lydon was referring to the term developer in municipal land use law,
Yes.
which is a person who submits an application. That's it.
And I'm asking what? Related to the powers as defined in the municipal land use law, the state of New Jersey verifies that the purpose is, in fact, that's why a board of adjustment was created, was to hear applications presented by developers. That's what his statement is.
Okay, so what is your question?
My question is,
One second.
what evidence do you have
The statute
in
says-
state, in the statute, in the code, or anywhere else that says that is why they were created?
The powers of the zoning board of adjustment are set forth in NJSA 4050.
Yes, sir, I'm glad to read them to you.
Yeah, so it's here and decide appeals, here and decide requests for interpretations, and here and decide requests for variances.
That's what you're reading out of the
And-
Municipal land use law. That's
And
the-
my question is,
That's the
well,
powers
how
of-
does that get characterized by Mr. Lydon? What evidence does he have that a board of adjustment was created
Those are
to hear applications presented by developers?
Mr. Lydon, can you answer that question or not?
I thought it might get done sometime this year, but the municipality can have a zoning ordinance if you don't have a board of adjustment. A board of adjustment, unlike a planning board has policy roles and responsibilities. A board of adjustment doesn't.
Right.
It hears applications. Developers is a defined term and simply means someone who files an application. So the board of adjustment exists to hear applications.
Next question.
I'm very much interested to have us understand from you your understanding of the portions of the master plan. I want to read to you two direct comments that you made and ask you specifically how you can justify them. He says the first way on is June 20th.
On June 20th, what page and line?
Page 10, line 20.
June 20th? Okay, hold on.
First way to show site functions well is whether or not there's consistency with the master plan. And in this case, there is. The master plan intent here in Teaneck is to encourage, not just to allow,
but to encourage the explanation of multifamily housing. Expansion of multifamily housing, where it doesn't impinge upon single-family neighborhoods. Then you also, in a discussion on page 21, 15 through 24, I'm glad you asked that, Mr. Chairman. First, there are no single-family dwellings nearby, and that's important because your master plan calls for encouraging multifamily housing developments if single-family dwellings are not in the neighborhood. I would define this neighborhood as being one that does not have single-family neighborhoods, so it encourages and furthers the goals of the master plan. Do you believe that you have actually properly understood and declared the actual intent of the master plan in relationship to its position on the expansion of multifamily housing?
Yes.
All right. Can we take a look then at the master plan from 2007, page 2, goals 2 and 3.
You have exhibits. This is marking, Mr. Bell.
Sorry?
This is marking them. You have exhibits you want to show.
The master plan is the plan of the Township of Teaneck.
We want to see what you're reading from is, right? Anybody can say that. It's a master plan.
Sorry?
What are you reading from?
I am reading from the master plan of the Township of Teaneck,
So what's
2007.
So what's the question?
My question is what you just declared to be the intent of the master plan verified by what is found on the goals of the master plan on page 1, number 2, and number 3. Can you read them for me, please?
What is the date of the master plan?
2007. I have them all.
So this is not his direct testimony, so we're asking.
It's not his direct testimony?
No.
One second. One person at a time. You have all night. You get finished there by at least sometime later.
It's my understanding that the purpose of the questions was to question his testimony, not to bring in.
This is cross-examination of testimony. But if you, what are you quoting? What section of the master plan are you quoting from?
Quoting from goals number 2 and 3 on pages 1 and 2 of the 2007 Teaneck master plan, which is its master plan, its sole master plan.
Well, there wasn't a master plan and re-examination.
There was a re-examination, but as Mr. Lydon, it is a special case, and it is not actually the master plan itself.
What? The re-examination plan is not part of the master plan?
It's part of it. It's a report.
It's a report.
Am I correctly characterizing your testimony, Mr. Lydon?
I'm going to direct him not to answer any questions at this time.
What I'm reading you is that he says the master plan intent here in Teaneck is to encourage, not just to allow, but to encourage the expansion of multifamily housing where it doesn't impinge upon single-family neighborhoods.
Mr. Lydon, do you know if that is true or not?
That is a true statement.
Okay.
And can you therefore show me where in the master plan you derive that intent, including the full statement of the goal, from which that's taken?
Well, isn't it more than just the goal he has to look at in order to get the whole?
Where is he deriving it from?
So would you give him the master plan?
Happy to.
That's not his testimony in general.
You read me the entirety of goal number 2?
One second. No, that's not the
That's
question.
not the question.
That's not the question.
That's the next question.
Well, are we going to take them in order?
Let's take them in order.
Patience, Mr. Powers, patience.
I would appreciate if you read the entire
One
goal.
second, Mr. Powers, give the man an opportunity. You have prepared these questions And you know what page and what, you know, you wanna,
Chapter 3, Mr. Chairman, the answer to Mr. Dr. Fowler's question is entitled Land Use Plan Elements. And it also has goals and objectives. And it has a section entitled Goals of the Land Use Plan Element R2. The objectives of the Land Use Plan Element are 2. 1, provide zoning protection for existing multifamily housing and encourage its expansion. To encourage its expansion.
Only,
whoa, let him
keep
answer.
reading, keep reading.
Let him answer.
Mr. Powers, he's testifying, not
Okay,
you.
Ms. Berger, please stop.
Only in areas where it would not have a detrimental effect on existing single-family residential neighborhoods.
What is the first portion of that, what you just read?
I'm going to read it. Provide zoning protections for existing multifamily housing and encourage its expansion only in areas where it would not have a detrimental effect on existing single-family residential neighborhoods.
Provide zoning protection.
Wait,
for-
wait.
Mr. Powers, you asked the question, and he answers. So if you don't like his answer, that's a different
I
story.
will follow that question.
Okay. So
You took-
let me help you, Mr. Powers. So I think what Mr. Powers would like to say is, isn't it true that it also says something and something on page section 2 of the municipal land use? Fair?
He is reading.
I'm just asking, is that your next question? Is that your next question?
My question is why he takes only half of that goal when the first half of it points in a completely different direction in respect of
You
the
cannot-
project he is talking about.
Mr. Powers.
And so therefore, I'm asking him why he.
Mr.
Characterize.
Mr. Lydon, why did you only read part B instead of part A?
Because I was answering his question, and a mischaracterization of my testimony is I only read part of the objective. I read the entire objective, not once, but twice.
Next question, Mr. Powers. Dr. Powers.
Are you aware of the fact that that same goal with the same provision, provide zoning protection for existing multifamily housing and encourage its expansion only in areas where it would not have detrimental effect on single-family residential neighborhoods, appears as exactly quoted just then in the 2011, 2014, and 2017 master plan reexaminations?
As I stand here tonight, I can't testify to that.
I can. You want me to read it?
Whoa.
I can provide you with the information.
I'm
Do you
going
need
to
the
object.
information?
I'm going to object.
Mr. Powers,
This
this
is
is
based
not.
upon his direct testimony, the cross-examination. He answered you that he can't give you that answer. So now you're arguing with him?
You can't give me what answer?
Whatever you asked about, I guess he doesn't have the document in front of him, and
I have the document.
But that's not the question what you have. The question is what he knows.
And is it true that you cite the 2011, 2014, and 2017 master plans as supportive of precisely what you just said about the intent of the master plan in relationship to multifamily housing, whereas in every case, the word only is the encouragement, and the reference to existing multifamily housing is it not the case that that is a relevant portion to understanding what the intent of the master plan is about multifamily housing?
I can't possibly answer or follow that question. I'm sorry.
You can't follow?
I'll read the next question.
Do you believe that the master plan in relation to multifamily housing that you cite in all of those 4 iterations of master plan and master plan reexamination always begins the statement of affirming multifamily housing units by saying provide zoning protections for existing multifamily housing?
I'm going to object. The testimony, it doesn't matter belief. We're not testifying on belief here.
didn't say anything about belief.
Yes, you did. You started your questions. Do you believe?
I think we go outside the scope of this examination and cross-examination. Are you trying to say that in the 2014 re-examination report, that goals and data says provide zoning protection for existing multifamily housing, and encourage its expansion only in areas where it would not have detrimental effects on single-family residential neighborhoods? Is that what you want?
That is, and I'm asking whether or not that is not.
Is that the goals and objectives?
Is that not one of the? Is that not a clear statement? The only absolutely clear statement in all of those master plan examinations. Is it not also the case that every time the issues that you are citing in terms of encouragement are always linked to providing protection for existing multifamily housing?
Single family.
Single family. No. Multifamily. That's the point, Mr. Chairman. It is. Well,
I'm going to object because he's now making statements, and that's not
provide-
the purpose of this.
Is it not the case that every time that any master plan of which you are aware talks about encouragement, it always includes the word only in respect of single-family housing, and always is prefaced by providing zoning protection for existing multifamily housing?
I'm going to object because you asked him before if he knew if these words were in each of these reports. And he said to you, he cannot definitively answer if these words were in each of these reports. You didn't like his answer, so now you've asked the same question again. I'm going to object and direct my witness not to answer.
I have, Mr. Chairman, I have 2 copies of each of these master plan examinations. If it's appropriate for him to review them and see whether or not is it not the case that every time that word is used, the word only was never included in what you talked about.
Dr. Powers.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. You know, if you have something you want to show the board and show the expert, then let's do it that way, slowly.
They all are.
Wait, yeah, they all are. One at a time. Let's see, you have
2011?
Well, let's start. I don't know, I think they all have to be read together, right?
We should pick which one he wants to ask a question. Go ahead and ask a question.
Go ahead.
She said,
No, wait a minute.
Identify the document.
First tell us what document you have in the hand.
okay.
Give us a copy over here,
So
and give
is
us
this
one
part-
second. And give us the Lydon a copy. And then, let's see if you can ask a question regarding the particular document you want to talk about, and then we'll see if we
Well, I
can
would like
answer.
the first, if Mr. Powers could refer to the transcript as to the testimony of Mr. Lydon on the 2011 report.
Ask him.
Because
Okay.
we're limited to cross-examining him on what his direct testimony was.
In other words, I think Mr. Powell, Dr. Powers is trying to use your expert as his expert.
Correct, and that's not what we're doing.
That's why cross-examination is done the way cross-examination is done. So you have to bring your own expert if you want to solicit something
I'm not.
but I'm not finished, outside the direct testimony by this witness. However, I will give you a little leeway, okay? Because I understand the differences between a professional who does this on a regular basis and somebody who, I would say, does it on a regular basis, but maybe is not a professional as to this particular subject. So, let's do the following. Identify the document you want to speak about, which I think you did, the re-examination report of what date?
2011.
What date?
Which one? Which
Re-examination.
The cover page.
Cover page says already.
As adopted by the Teaneck Planning Board on May 25th, 2011.
May 25th, 2011. Give us a copy up here. Give Mr. Lydon a copy. Let's see if,
No, I want to know where Mr. Lydon testified to it
and then
first.
we'll get there. Okay, let's,
Because otherwise I'm going to object to it.
I can still object. I'm just not saying, you know. And then Mr. Lydon gets a copy as well, right, Mr. Powers, Dr. Powers?
We mark this.
Yes, we mark this, not for evidence, but for,
So they call it Powers we want to do the 2007 master plan first?
I didn't show anyone, I don't know what it was supposed to be.
Powers 1 is the
May 25th,
2011.
For identification only, not for evidence, for
Right.
identification. Just so we know what we're talking about. Okay. Now, Mr. Powers, just keep that to Mr. Lydon. Dr. Powers, also, before you ask this question, I would like to know, where did this testimony appear on the record that you're trying to solicit or question about?
Look at the cover sheet.
Not the cover sheet they have. The cover sheet they have says it is the one.
So you're giving me a different document?
Well, I have, you want to see, we need to make a copy of that?
It's a little late. Get a copy of it.
What's the issues,
When he gave us said proposal.
we can't ask him a question about a proposed document.
It is the same
That's out of
document.
order.
It's not the same one.
Let's go to
If it says
214.
proposed on it, this one doesn't say proposed, and it's clearly not the same document, irrespective of the contents behind it. The first
Let's
page
go to
is different, it's a
214.
different document.
Next, let's go to 214.
So that one is not going to be introduced to them.
No, in the evidence for now.
No, it's not, he marked it for identification.
For identification.
There's not going to be questions about it.
Right, no questions about it. Let's go to the next one.
Powers 2.
Am I correct at the same?
Well, let's identify the document first. What is the document you would like to identify as Powers 2 with today's date for identification only? Dr. Powers, what is that?
Sorry?
Could you
I
identify
don't
the
have a third
document?
copy. It was introduced on,
You introducing it now.
Okay.
For identification only. I'm not saying go and send it as evidence.
adopted March 13, 2014.
So it's master plan re-examination report adopted March 13, 2014 as exhibit Powers 2. Do you have a copy of that now, Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Does Mr. Lydon have a copy of that?
Yes.
Now that you have that, let me,
Issue of objection.
well, let's,
I don't have an objection as it being a master plan re-examination report. I may have an objection.
You had objected to the prior document, I wanted to make sure if you had.
And I'm not sure if all pages are there, I did not check.
let's check.
To be honest with you, I
1,
didn't
2, 3,
look.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15.
15 pages. Okay, you have the one with 15 pages as well.
Not including the cover page.
Right.
And then those. Now, let me ask Mr. Powers, just so we understand what's going on. Where in Mr. Lydon's direct examination did he talk about this master plan re-examination report dated March 13, 2014?
I don't think even that respond to that question. Do you remember, Mr. Lydon?
No.
2014?
Just, I'm asking you, so we can get that on the record, so then you have a better stab at asking Mr. Lydon about this report.
have it, Al? Do you have that where he talks about all of them?
Okay, how we doing there? Mr. Powell, do you need a few minutes? I need a few minutes. Okay, so let's take the next person. Maybe we'll have you take a break and these questions we got on that. Ma'am, come on up. I think we will. Come on in, ask the question.
Ms. Belcher again, 703 Cedar Lane up here. My question has to do, and it's spelled E-E-L-C-H-E-R. I'm not here representing the planning board in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but I do have a question after reading your testimony, and that has to do with, it seems like a large part of your planning kind of depended upon general data. For example, you reference a lot of life records, real estate data tables and studies and so forth. And I know that part of the plan does. But what percentage of your overall plan depended upon property-specific data as opposed to general data?
Well, I think the Rutgers 2018 demographic study, although it's general, is very specific to the properties that are analyzed and how it provides information. I think the census data is very specific to Teaneck, well quoted. I think the enrollment history that Teaneck has experienced since 2010, I think I used 2009, I forget the years, but I think that is very specific to Teaneck. I think my characterization of the neighborhood was very specific to properties. So I think I do a blended both general planning theory, general observations that are published by learning institutions like Rutgers, and I use the Teaneck master plan to blend with the site-specific of the neighborhood.
I guess what I'm specifically asking is, did you depend on, what percentage did you depend upon impact studies that were specific to 100 State Street?
The team had a traffic study done, and the legal parking study was a part of that. So I would say those were the impact statements on the particular property.
Okay, so that would be transportation, like urban transit?
No, it was estimates of how many cars are going to be drawn to the site, what the peak hour traffic will be, how many parking spaces might be appropriate number. So it was estimates and based on specific data that the industry uses as to what the likely impact of this development might be on the neighborhood.
Okay, but was it more general data as opposed to specific data?
I think there's specific data, just like I think the census data is specific. Just like I think the Rutgers data is specific. It's not for a property in Teaneck, but you can apply it the way it's presented to the specific property in Teaneck.
Thank you.
Let's see if somebody else wants to. Mr. Powell, Dr. Powell, you ready?
I have some references to 2014, but it's certainly the case that he referred to it and saw it as being consistent with the, but I
So there you have your answer. Ma'am, you have a question?
Yeah, Sharon Beal, 33 Hamilton Road. B-E-A-L, Beal. Sharon, 33 Hamilton Road. In reference to the date, this is my first meeting, so I apologize if I ask something that's not appropriate. In reference to you saying the neighborhood, what exactly encompasses the neighborhood? Because while I'm not directly on State Street, I live in the neighborhood, so the traffic directly impacts upon me. So I'm just wondering, what do you consider to be the neighborhood?
State Street.
That's the only neighborhood? And all of the rest of the neighborhoods that encompass it, are the blocks that encompass the neighborhood? The neighborhood is only State Street?
State Street.
and with the council, not only a question for him per se. My block, Hamilton Road.
Wait.
It's the only question.
Okay, can only ask him a question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Time later, but everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening, how are you? Teresa Edwards. Last name's easy, Edwards, first name is Therise. Okay, following up on the questions that Ms. Belcher just asked you a little while ago, you said you relied upon the traffic study?
Yes.
Okay, did you take the traffic study as is, or did you probe it in any way to make? Did you just take the traffic study as it was presented to you?
And I discussed with Mr. Steiger, who was the gentleman who prepared it.
Okay.
All the traffic reports are also produced by the township experts. I don't believe I checked with them.
Okay, so my question is, and since you're saying your testimony is that you rely upon this, the information that was presented in terms of background data and everything was accepted as presented without question?
We had a traffic expert that did speak. The town's traffic expert did do a report. The town's traffic expert did testify at one point during the hearing. I don't remember if it was the first or second.
It was the first one, which is unfortunately the one meeting that I
But
could not make.
they did have colloquy about it and discuss it. He did not air it.
No, I understand. No, I understand he didn't prepare, but you are stating that you did rely upon it.
Yes.
And you continue to rely upon it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else from members of the public? Yes, please. Otherwise, we go all night.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Pagan Braccio Ashley. And I live at 33 West Toronto Avenue.
Could you spell the
Sure.
name? Close to the mic.
Pagan is Pagan. The next name is Raggio. And the last name is, the rest of the name is Ashley, Ashley. You're welcome. I just want to go over your testimony that you just said regarding the fact that you were only using State Street. The last time I spoke with you and asked you about what areas you were talking about in terms of defining the neighborhood as not having single-family houses, you had stated on multiple occasions that you walked throughout the area and you reviewed the area and that there were no single-family houses in the area, but you hadn't limited it to State Street. So I'm asking you again, I realize that someone else just asked you, how did you define the area as not having single-family housing? Because when you go one block away from State Street, and this is based on previous evidence you showed, you had shown diagrams. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'll try again. So, are you aware that one block from State Street going towards Bergenfield, that on Amsterdam Avenue, you have all single-family homes, and are you aware that as you go up Queen Anne Road and it turns into Tryon Avenue, which is one block over, so now 2 blocks from State Street, that those are all single-family homes? If you go in the opposite direction, no, I'm almost done. I'm trying to describe that.
We're trying to follow. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so let me, so how about if I stop there?
Yeah, that's why I was trying to
Are you
suggest.
aware of single-family housing on Amsterdam?
Yes, we did an application that bordered on Amsterdam, yes. The 1500 Teaneck Road property goes out to Amsterdam Road. It does. Trust me.
Am I going to be allowed to speak or?
That was the first question, so left hand, there's another question.
Okay. At the time, are you aware that at this point in time, that building has not been completed yet and no one lives there yet?
We're talking about 1500 Teaneck Road.
Yes. Are you aware that on Tryon Avenue, all the homes on Tryon Avenue going up to Teaneck Road, not crossing Teaneck Road, are single-family homes?
Yes, I've done a number of applications down on Palisades, and I'm very familiar with Tryon Avenue, and I have traversed it on numerous occasions.
Okay. Are you aware that on West Englewood Avenue, that most of the homes on West Englewood Avenue between Queen Anne Road and Teaneck Road are single-family homes? Most of the homes, not all the homes.
Can't say I'm not familiar with West Englewood Avenue, Jeff. I think I'm not familiar.
Fair enough. It's a couple of blocks going towards Route 4.
I know where it's going, I've driven down and studied it.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Anyone else from members of the public? Powers, Dr. Powers? Let's see if we can finish with this.
I've certainly found many references to the fact that we talk about 2014 and 2017. Let me bring sort of direct attention toward this little discussion. I've never understood what you were talking about.
I'm going to object.
How can you object till I ask the question?
Because you're characterizing that you don't understand his testimony. That's why.
I understand, we understand this burden, patience. Everybody, patience. Everybody, calm down.
In your 516, page 116, 116 line 4,
116, line 4,
in your May testimony.
116,
In 2017, this is your testimony, and the question I'm going to ask you is how in the world you can justify what you say here, because you have, I do not believe you can find the places you are referring to. I know 2014 because it's really dealt with a different portion of the township, but in 2017, I'm not clear what you're doing there, the master plan of the planning board saw fit to prepare a new land use element, and in that identified range of problems was in finding non-residential real estate base, the Amazon effect, and the empty office space. It also identified outdated zoning and the need to provide affordable housing. One of the big problems identified in that master plan land use element was the prevalence of vacant, dead office space, creating a negative impact to the surrounding neighborhoods. At this site, end of quote, they could have been writing about this particular site. And it goes on after that to acknowledge, and it mentions the difficulty these office buildings can create. It says, and this is, I think, unusual language in a master plan, and we write and read a lot of master plans. It says, it was incumbent, there was a responsibility upon Teaneck to evaluate zoning policies to include a wider range of scenarios for vacant and underperforming office properties. That's pretty strong language. It puts affirmative burden on, it suggests there is an affirmative burden on the township to address them and to address the sites that fit our site to a T. Would you explain to me, Mr. Lydon, why when we did a word search of the 2017 re-examination, we found none of the words or even concepts cited in that last paragraph?
I object to the question. I can't answer why Dr. Powers couldn't find something.
Mr. Lydon, do you understand the question?
I do, but I stand by the testimony.
Next question.
You believe it's possible to find these in the 2017 master plan re-examination, the language you just quoted there?
I think the question was asked and answered, but you can answer it again.
Is that not a quote?
Well, one second, Dr. Powers, I'm trying to help you, okay? So, Mr. Lydon, was it the same question as before, or?
This wasn't a quote, it was paraphrased, and yes, it's in that document.
Okay,
That's
next.
an affirmative burden. Is the affirmative burden your term or the one from 2017?
It's my turn.
And is it puts an affirmative burden on, or the township to address sites that fit our site to a T, or it was incumbent upon, there was a responsibility upon Teaneck to evaluate zoning policies which include a wider range of three scenarios for vacant and underperforming office properties. Are those quotes, sir?
No.
They're just your interpretation of the 2017 master plan without being able to cite where that came from? I can't find it.
Well, listen, you can't ask Mr.
I'm asking
One
where-
second.
I have the 2017.
Hold on,
Dr.
one
Powers.
person at a time, please.
It doesn't help you talk over me. I'm trying to help you here. So, here's my point I'm trying to make. If you ask Mr. Lydon, if you paraphrase, and it's his interpretation how he paraphrased it, you can't ask him afterwards whether he uses the language as you read it in whatever document you're reading from. You should go the other way, right?
Do you have any idea
Do
where?
you understand what I'm
Do you
saying?
have any
Dr.
idea
Powers?
where in the 2017 master plan examination?
Mr. Chairman,
Acknowledge that.
I'm trying to help you here. If you're trying to figure out what is in the master plan, according to Mr. Lydon's understanding, ask him that question. Not the other way around, it doesn't work. I think that would help you to
I'm
trying to
asking
drive your point home.
From whence in the 2017 master plan you're quoting or paraphrasing something that it seems to me you have no basis for, but therefore I'm asking you to show us where in the 2017 master plan you got that concept, even if it's only a paraphrase.
Mr. Lydon, is there somewhere in the master plan? Did you examine the master plan, 2017?
Yes.
In there, is that master plan and the goals and objectives and everything else that's in that entire master plan, from page 1 to page finish, does that support what you paraphrased before and your testimony in this planning, in your planning testimony?
Yes, it does.
Where?
No.
If it paraphrases, it wouldn't be exactly word for word.
Where does the concept get carried forward that you're talking about, Mr. Lydon?
Is that your interpretation of the 2017 master plan?
Yes.
It's your interpretation, but you can't cite anything but you're citing a document. When you cite a document, do you not expect us to be able to go find it?
Mr. Dr. Powell, now you're arguing with the witness. Ask him a pointed question.
Okay, my question
Your point is, I get your point. You're saying that Mr. Lydon is not citing to something, he's paraphrasing something,
No.
and therefore his testimony is no good.
I'm saying he's not only paraphrasing, there ain't anything like that in this
Well,
law.
that's what you're saying.
But I'm asking him to show us that there's something like that.
Sir, hold on. The first thing we need to do, we need to put a marking on this for the record for identification.
He didn't show anything.
He's given us the 2017.
Yeah, but there's no questions regarding to the witness. But whatever you are in charge of.
Well, I think it's appropriate. He's talking about, and he's asking the witness about a document. We should at least mark it so that
We know what we're talking about.
we know what we're talking about. That's my only concern for posterity, that we know that the 2017 re-examination report adopted by the Township of Teaneck Planning Board on April 27, 2017 is going to be marked for identification only at this time as Powers 3.
I want to remind you, Mr. Lydon, that the question I'm asking is where you would have gotten something that justifies your statement that this site, they could have been writing about this particular site. And it goes on after it acknowledges and mentions the difficulty of these office buildings can create. It says, and this is, I think, unusual language in the master plan,
and we write and read a lot of master plans, it said it was incumbent. There was a responsibility upon Teaneck to evaluate zoning policies to include a wider range of scenarios for vacant and underperforming office properties. From whence in 2017 were you talking about?
This is my paraphrasing of the document.
What page and what, are you citing from a transcript?
Yes, page 116, most of the page.
Which one, which, June 20th?
I believe so.
What is the first,
Line 4 through 24.
oh, that's a different page.
And thus, Mr.
One second, May 16th.
May 16th.
May 16th, let me go now.
I'm sorry, where?
It starts in 2017?
Yes.
Okay, that's from the May 16th transcript, 2019, page 116, line 4.
So on line 20, for instance, it says, and this, I think...
It says.
It says, that's
and
what it
this
quotes.
is, I think, unusual language in the master plan. That's clearly me paraphrasing the master plan and what it says. It was incumbent. There was a responsibility upon Teaneck to evaluate zoning policies to include a wider range of these scenarios for vacant and underperforming office spaces. That was me paraphrasing what the master plan speaks about.
And where can you find what you're paraphrasing, sir?
Then I go on to, before I answer your question, that's pretty strong language. Clearly, that's me speaking. It puts affirmative burden on, it suggests there's an affirmative burden on the township to address them and address the site that fit our site to a T. Clearly, that's me paraphrasing what's in the master.
It said.
So what is your question?
My question is, where can you find anything to support your paraphrase of it says, and this is, I think, unusual language in the master plan. It said, that's not paraphrase language. It said, and it was incumbent, there was a responsibility upon Teaneck to evaluate zoning policies to include a wider range of scenarios for vacant and underperforming office properties.
I don't have the document in front of me, the 2007 examination report, so I can't point to a page.
We have it? Okay. Is that the same one? Dated April 27th, 2017?
I assume it's the same one.
Okay. Mark as Powers, 3.
You remember, this is what Mrs.
One second, one question. Everyone, patience. You mean Dr. Pruitt who said something about his inspections now? How you feel? Okay.
On page 2 of that document, objectives. Item number 3.
Hold on, slow down.
Sorry.
Page 2.
Page 2, objectives. Number 3, and this is under the heading of major problems and objectives of the 2014 Master Plan Reexamination. Number 3 writes, encourage the revitalization of vacant buildings and encourage the rehabilitation and restoration of brownfields and other contaminated buildings and land.
Is this a brownfield?
Wait, did you want him to answer the whole question?
Number 13 in the same set of objectives on page 3 is promote a diversified economic base. Number 14 writes, focus economic development efforts on existing commercial, industrial, and office districts and provide support and reinforcement to the 4 business districts to improve their viability. Under B, major problems, 1, decline in non-residential tax raises on page 4. The first line refers back to the subsequent 2011 and 2014 master plan reexaminations, and line 2 it says the township had seen an overall erosion of the non-residential tax base since the 1970s.
And Mr. Lydon, what in the world do you think substantiates your description, not just read from your testimony?
Excuse me, I haven't finished my answer.
Here. Go forward.
Under the same category B, major problems, on page 5, there's a number 5, economic development in the retail districts. At the time of the writing of 2014 master plan reexamination, there had been little to no new commercial development in the township since the adoption of the 2011 master plan reexamination. Development was essentially limited to minor renovations of existing buildings. On page 9, Mr. Chairman, number 3, heading number 3, extent to which problems or objectives from the last master plan have been reduced or increased, and significant changes in assumptions, policies, and objectives underlying the plan. Under 1, the first heading is decline in the non-residential tax rate base. The very last paragraph says, on the third line from the bottom, still remains a need to identify further opportunities for the private market to develop vacant sites or redevelop marginal or underutilized sites to increase the township's tax rate base due to the decline in municipal revenues and state aid. I can go on, Mr. Chairman, but there seems to be a problem with the document that was handed to me. Page 12, you looking along?
Yes, we're
Page
looking along.
12, there's a heading 9, community services, and there's nothing below that. But the top of page 13 starts off and says, windows and lintels will be replaced in older parts of the municipal building.
It's the same old version. Let me just ask you, Mr. Lydon, what about the goals page?
Before I get to that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to flip over to page 25.
Page 25?
Yes.
Go ahead.
It talks about on page 25 in the middle paragraph, towards the bottom of the paragraph, it talks about previously paragraph 2017 master re-examination reports. Re-examination recommended sites could be zoned for 2 uses. Not just like that. But then it goes on, currently, however, and for the foreseeable future, demand for office uses, especially on a property of that size, is lacking. So there is a suggestion in this document that the economic conditions that the township has experienced were causing some struggles. And I think I can go on, but it is getting late.
Okay, Mr. Lydon, I'm going to ask you, are you saying that when you have just trying to draw from the 2017 master plan examination is a way of saying what you say here, and it goes on to acknowledge, and it mentions the difficulty these office buildings can create. It says, and this is, I think, unusual language in the master plan, and we write and read a lot of master plans. It said it was incumbent, there was a responsibility upon Teaneck to evaluate zoning policies to include a wider range of re-scenarios for vacant and underperforming office properties. I do not think that the 7 different things that you've read, which took us all over the place from ratables and everything, I'm trying to figure out how you think that that is a good summary. And maybe you do. Do you think that was a good summary of what you told us the 2017 master plan said?
Yes.
All right.
His testimony.
That's his testimony.
Anything else?
Yeah, actually, I want to ask him this. Not sure how long we want to spend on this, but I do think that we need to remind ourselves of what he very early on line on page 10.
I'm going to object to the characterization.
On page 10, line 15 and 16, you are talking about page 20, page 10, line 15 and 16. You are characterizing the variances. And then you say, then of course you always have to show the negative criteria for every variance. Mr. Lydon, does your testimony in any way provide us with the negative criteria?
Yes.
You believe it does?
Yes.
The only is it true that the only 2 variances to which your testimony refers are height and density?
I don't believe that's true.
Can you cite me anywhere else in your testimony? I can't create testimony you didn't give.
I'm going to object to
That's just
arguing with the witness.
It's an appropriate analysis. Ask the question, don't argue.
That you have shown the negative criteria for every instance, for every variance.
That's a different question.
It's a different question, isn't it? I think this is in the record.
Words, it's not really appropriate. Next question.
Mr. Parrish wants to contend, he gives a statement that it's not there, that's false.
Is it true, Mr. Lydon, that you give us a flurry of legal cases to explain why you are handling these variances the way in which you do?
I'm going to object to the
You want to have you want a quotation?
No, I'm going to object to that. That's not a question.
There's standards for the variances set forth in cases. Mr. Lydon testified based on the standards of the cases, and I think that's all that really matters. He gave testimony.
Can you explain your use of the Coventry case?
What? That's not a question. What are
Yeah,
you asking to explain?
I'm asking, he cites the Coventry case.
Exactly. That's what he did.
And I'm trying to understand why.
So, Mr. Powers, the Coventry case is a case decided by the Supreme Court of New Jersey, I believe, in 1994, conditional use variances. The Later, the appellate division in Drugs versus Slot Tower and Grasso versus Spring Lake Heights said the standard of proof for a density variance or for a floor area ratio variance or for an exceptionally large height variance, so the floor area ratio is a different case, I believe that's pretty real. It's the same standard of proof as in Coventry, and I believe that's why Mr. Lydon was citing it.
And are the variances which the associates in the Coventry case were having to defend in any way, shape, or form related to those use variances? I'm asking the question.
But I'm objecting to the
Mr. Lydon is the
question.
appropriate witness for that. He gave testimony as to why he believes that the variances sought here can be granted under the requirements of the municipal name. What a case says is not germane to Mr. Lydon's testimony.
Is it?
The facts of that case are not relevant.
So, but so you thought we should, it was unrelated to this case?
I'm going to object. He's asking him legal questions now that have no bearing on his testimony. I'm objecting to it.
Mr. Lydon decided that he was enough of a lawyer to cite the cases?
No, that's not what he did.
That's not what
He gave testimony based upon the variances requested here, based upon the applicable standards. What kind of variances an applicant required in another case is not relevant. The relevant part of the case is the holding. The holding says this is what is required for a height variance, a D6 height variance. This is what's required for a density variance. The cases that set those rules up cite to the holding in Coventry Square. What was required in Coventry Square is not germane to this proceeding.
I have one more question, and it goes back to my questioning Mr. Lydon about his use of the master plan. And on page 170, line 7 through 12 of the 620. Did you cite the State Street inventory study in that testimony?
I'm sorry, could you just say the page and the line again?
Page 170, lines 7 through 12.
I'm confused. I don't understand the question.
Did you reference that independent study?
What independent study?
Well, what it says is.
No, wait. What are you quoting?
Please go ahead.
What page?
170 of the 620.
Page 170, line 1.
This is in response to Mr. Sabbath. He's asking about cumulative impact. It says, they may not have looked at the other ones, but they weren't done in isolation. The Teaneck Township Council has authorized a cumulative study of the projects that the developments that you and I are discussing, which I understand is in the works right now. Do you understand it to be still in the works right now?
I believe there's a draft study prepared.
Have you had a chance to read that study?
No.
Are you?
I didn't testify about why.
You did not testify to its content. You made reference to it.
No, the reference was that there was a study that was going to be done. You did not reference us the study.
And we will return to the page, Roman numeral 6 of that study, since it completely contradicts.
What study?
The Preiss. impact study, to which we just heard Mr. Lydon refer.
Has it
He
been
did
adopted?
not. He did not refer to a price impact
He
study.
said he heard that there was a study being
He
made.
heard
He
that there
hadn't,
was, the council has authorized the study of the project.
he didn't
That's
say he
what
saw
said.
it. He just said, in fact, he did not see it.
It sounded to me like the testimony was it's a draft.
No, there wasn't even anything done at that
Oh,
point.
is there a study that's been adopted by anybody as
No,
of today?
no.
And it's not appropriate.
There's no study to be adopted. It was not something to be adopted. It was, in fact, a...
Wait, I object to his characterization of what the council is doing.
Okay, Mr. Powers is trying to explain, I don't know why, because we're not gonna hear testimony about it anyhow. So. But any other questions, Mr. Powers?
I have a email from the clerk today saying that the draft study is the final.
Okay, very nice. But what does that help us with Mr. Lydon?
Because-
Mr. Lydon, well, let me finish. Mr. Lydon said he didn't review it, so you can't ask him any questions about it. And you can ask him all the questions, and he says, I don't know about
And
it.
when we get to commentary on this entire application, misrepresentation of the master plan will be clarified.
Good, let's do that. All right. I guess there's no other people who want to ask questions of this witness? Nope, okay, seeing none? Yeah, you have comments or any?
I do.
Okay, let's do that then. Put that on tonight and then we'll continue tomorrow with this application.
Okay, my name is Elizabeth Leheny, Leheny. I'm board planner. I have two items. This is based on our February 20th, 2019 review letter. The first has to do with affordable housing. And in 2018, as the board is well aware, there was a settlement agreement with the Fair Share Housing Center that rental projects had to provide 15% affordable housing. The applicant is proposing just short of 15%. It's about 14.7%.
I thought the applicant is having 2 1-bedrooms, 6 2-bedrooms, and 2 3-bedrooms, for a total of 10 units.
10 units and 10 is 14.7%.
And the rest are supposed to be paid according to the schedule.
That I don't believe is.
Am I correct, Ms. Berger?
Yes.
There's a monetary
Payment
compensation
when
for
you
that
have-
fraction.
Correct.
That is used to our firm. Because
Okay.
from
That's my understanding.
That's my understanding.
Okay, it's my
And
understanding.
you're gonna put that on the record, that that
Correct.
was us.
Correct.
All right. I mean, my understanding from Richard Preiss, who I spoke with this afternoon, who negotiated the settlement agreement, is that there was no payment in lieu of contributions.
When you're fraction, at fraction of 0.7 to 0.0.
Whatever.
But, okay.
But that's what's gonna happen here, and that's
Okay.
acceptable, I guess,
Yeah.
to the,
From what I understand, it's not acceptable, so that's why I'm bringing it
not
up.
acceptable.
Yeah.
Ms. Lenny, what would happen? Explain why you say that. And I'm sure Ms. Berger has a question.
Yes, no, I mean, my understanding is Fair Share Housing Center does not accept, or is no longer approving payment in lieu of construction. And so there's a concern that if we're taking less than 50%, that it will in some way undermine the settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center.
Well,
It's news to me because we have had Mr. Preiss here before, and I was dealing with this issue when he has stated on the oath that that was acceptable, unless there's been a change that settlement agreement since it came to fruition years ago.
No, there wouldn't have been any change, but I would ask that maybe Mr. speak with Richard Preiss.
If that's, can we agree that if you can no longer compensate, you would be willing to provide whatever is necessary to get over 50%?
I can't speak for my client and make that representation on the record. I have to say that it's our understanding that we're allowed to compensate for that difference, and in fact, the agreement on fair share, when was it finalized?
In 2018.
Right, but when?
I don't have the exact exact date.
All I'm saying is that once you worked out whatever the accurate current answer is, that you will comply one way or the other. Because you can't comply by, if you no longer accept a fraction, would be willing to provide the extra apartment or whatever it is to get you over the 15%.
Again, since it involves a number of the unit,
Right.
and I can't just say I'm going to change the number of units without getting my clients okay, and I don't want to put something on my.
So the fairness hearing on the settlement agreement was held on March 26, 2018, and the notice was published January 30th, 2018, so it predates that.
Right, I mean, our understanding the whole time was that we were going to make up the difference, anything that, because that was what was permitted, since it was such a close.
I don't know, it was in my letter to do 11, so I just
We'll deal with that issue
Yeah,
separate,
I
but I think it is important,
Yeah.
because we have done that previously also.
Right, but I think it should be clarified because it's
The 2018. I mean, I'll be happy to speak to Mr. Preiss.
Just so we understand, what's the consequence of doing, if there's a shortfall?
Well, I mean, there are a couple of things. One is that obviously there's an obligation that is settled with Fair Share Housing Center. We have to provide a certain number of units to meet an obligation. So we would potentially be short one of the units towards meeting the obligation. It also sets a precedent that maybe the board doesn't want to start. So I think that it would be important to sort of clarify with Mr. Preiss, who did negotiate the settlement agreement. I'd be happy to speak.
Reports and discussions with them, right here, on other cases, where fractions were paid into this fund, and they provide, because, you know, instead of providing 5 apartments, they only, was 4 point something, and says, all right, the fraction at a certain price. And everybody would know that.
Just recently, that's why
Oh, several.
Okay, I mean, I spoke with him this afternoon, so I bring that up at his
Moment
request.
I would say. Okay.
All right, so those are the questions I have. I think comments are coming.
So you only had one question?
Well, that's really the one
Please
question.
be quiet in the audience.
The housing.
That is the only question I have.
You said you had 2 things.
Well, I have other comments, but I think that's for later. Yeah?
Anything to do with this plan?
No, not with Mr. Lydon's testimony.
I think maybe we should have your comments about the other issue. Are you, Ms. Berger, are you done with your witnesses?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, I guess we have to go down on some of them. And that's,
All right, I mean, I think the only thing I wanted to put, this was in our review letter, which again was from February, is that the applicant is seeking variances for significant increases in density and in height over what is permitted by the zoning and what is the prevailing neighborhood character. And that we put in our letter that the applicant has to prove to the board's satisfaction that it can be reconciled with the fact that there are these increases in density, these increases in height, there's also some bulk variances, that can be reconciled with the fact that the master plan, while promoting redevelopment, while promoting revitalization, doesn't envision this kind of density, this kind of height at this location. And so, you know, we just, I think, urge the board to make sure that they feel that that has been reconciled, and also that, you know, the board takes into account what kind of impacts on the existing community the increases in height, the increases in density will have, the community character.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
In the master plan 2017, as referenced before,
right,
there is a section that says objectives, major problems, objectives of the 2014 master plan re-examination. And then it says A objectives, there are 8 objectives, and it says goals. And then it says provide zoning protection for existing multi-family housing and encourage an expansion only in areas where it would not have detrimental effects on single-family residential neighborhoods.
correct.
Was that, in your opinion, provide an encouragement for expansion of multifamily housing?
I think there's not a question, multifamily housing is a permitted use at this location.
That's what I'm trying to
yes.
get at.
That is a permitted, that's not at stake here, that's not the question.
Fine.
Right.
So it is a zone for multifamily use.
Correct.
So you think that this provision, aside from it talks about maybe outside, would encourage the establishment of multifamily in zones where multifamily is approved, even beyond, you know, I'm trying to say, even beyond what is like within the box of the zoning, permitted construction in the zoning area.
So are you saying that?
You know, in excess, if it fits and doesn't have any detrimental, does not have a detrimental effect on single family, if that's the case, do you think this provision would encourage, let's say if it's only zoned for 5 single family, then it would say, okay, if it doesn't give any detriment, we are gonna expand it and maybe put 10 units. That's my.
I'm not sure that that statement says that. I think that while it is perhaps encouraging expansion of multifamily, I don't think it's necessarily giving a carte blanche or to increase the density or increase the height to such an extent that it's potentially.
Well, I'm saying, extent is a different issue, but does it give some kind of more relaxation of the already approved zoning criteria or the extent of the building criteria by its encouragement?
I guess I'm not totally understanding your question. Are you saying, is it reinforcing the underlying zoning?
Yeah, does it reinforce the underlying zone and thereby maybe allowing where it's appropriate and doesn't disturb single-family use or single-family residential neighborhoods, that to maybe be a little more expansive in the development of the multi-families in a zone that's already deemed to be okay or permitted use in such a zone?
I guess I'm still not totally understanding your question. I think multifamily is the zoning ordinance says multifamily is appropriate. So that's not the question.
No. But my question to you is, do you think that this statement encouraging additional, I have to explain it a little bit clearer, especially at this time of night. But here's my point. If it's permitted was, let's say, 10 units in this multifamily zone, if it, as the goal and objective states that it encourages the expansion of the multifamily in areas, but it doesn't affect the single-family homes.
I think it encourages the use.
Do you think then, where let's say 10 were allowed, would encourage that you so to speak, build a little beyond that, then you increase the density where it conforms with this? There's no, the fact that there's no detriment to the single-family homes.
I don't think that's what that judge says.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up where a little while ago you said that it was incumbent on this board to judge the impact on the community, which is what we do all the time.
Right.
Having heard the testimony, is there any other empirical data other than opinion that could inform us that hasn't been presented by the owner and his attorney that you would think that would help us make our decision, other than, again, beyond what's already been presented? Is there anything we're missing that could help us judge what that impact is?
It's a good question, and certainly they testified to traffic, they testified to number of residents. But I think maybe what could, there's community character and there's neighborhood character, and yes, there have been some projects that have been approved by this board or have been rezoned by the council that are at a higher density or at a higher height than what is the prevailing built environment. But I think you have to every case rises and falls on its own merits, and I think you have to look at this site, in this case, in the context of what impacts it would have on the streetscape of the community character, and those are the
And how would you change that? How would you judge that in a changing community environment? I mean, when you say judge a community character, I would think you're talking about some sort of static, existing nature. However, in a community that's perhaps more dynamic or changing or evolving, how do we change that?
No, it's a good question. I think that the thing to keep in mind, though, is that it's changing not by virtue of the master plan, and it's not changing because the council changed the zoning. It's been changing on certain case-by-case sort of applications. And so I think that's something to, really the master plan and the zoning guide development. And so I think the board has to be satisfied that, you can grant this approval given that there's no guidance in those documents that you have on this property.
Jim, thank you.
Can I add a question, Mr. Chair? Ms. Lydon, you mentioned in your statement, you used the word reconcile. I wanted to ask you about that. This project doesn't need a D1 use variance.
That's correct.
When you're using the term reconcile, are you using it in the sense that the Supreme Court used it in Medici for reconciliation and use variance, or in a different way?
No, you're right. Medici doesn't apply here.
And I think that's going to go to the follow-up based on Mr. Rose's question.
Yes, no, Medici does not apply here.
So, does the board need to be concerned with the statements in Medici about specific changes to the zoning that the governing body has made for property over, let's say, property A, but not for property B in terms of its reconciliation, or is it more strictly related to the nature of the variances sought and the impacts associated?
I think that's perhaps a more apt description, but it's the impacts, yes.
Thanks. The board doesn't have to do it.
Any other statements you have about?
No.
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question. So in the 2017 master plan reexamination report, there's a section on the housing element. And the section on the housing element talks about the Fair Share Act and what has to be complied with in the town and et cetera. And isn't this property specifically mentioned and included to meet that goal? And doesn't it talk about a building and number of units that exceeds density and exceeds height?
Well, I think that was all based on the previous application.
But it still exceeded density and it still exceeded height.
And it was denied, or what happened to that application?
It was pending, but the report recognized that and said it was there to meet the goal. Additionally.
That's one question.
No, I mean, it's an interesting point. But I don't think, I still would say that even though it's in the master plan, no actions,
I thought you told me that the fair share report was determined with the court and signed, and this was one of the properties that was.
No, the fair share report was actually done in 2019, post start of this application process. The fair share report, not the settlement agreement.
But the prior application that's referenced in here is pending.
I'm not sure if that's a settlement agreement.
So, and besides that, didn't the mayor and council here know about this property being developed because it signed a deed release on the property? Additionally, it signed an agreement with the applicant that it could build a parking lot across the street in order for it to meet its parking requirements for the development that it was going to build. So if you look at everything in unison.
I think what I would ask is that maybe I'm sure the deed has been brought up to evidence, and I think I think that would be.
Please, please, calm it down a little bit.
If you could provide that to the board and us for review, that would be helpful.
It's part of the consent agenda. Okay.
Anything else that you have to add? Yeah. Anyone from the members of the board have any questions? Ma'am, go ahead, come on. I think you're still stepping aside. Go ahead. That's the question.
Again. Tanya, Lydon, Raggio, Ashley. I want to try to answer the question that you asked her.
Okay, question for her.
Oh, I don't, well, I didn't ask you a question. Okay. I'm sorry. So I was wondering, have you heard of a health impact analysis as it pertains to the health of individuals and what crowding does to the health of persons, particularly when density in terms of building is expanded over and beyond what it should be?
Honestly, I'm not aware of any studies, but that doesn't mean they don't exist, I just don't.
Okay. So, again, I have to ask you a question. Are you aware that the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation has done extensive research on this and shown that when you exceed certain densities and you have overcrowding, that there's an increase of adverse health impact, adverse mental health impact on persons, and particularly children and older adults.
Again, I'm not familiar, which doesn't mean that they don't exist at this time.
Yeah.
Motion, go ahead. Try not to testify.
I'm not testifying. I'm not testifying. Are you aware that in addition to that the Rutgers School of Planning, also known as the
She's not aware of this.
She already answered.
I didn't ask this question yet.
Yeah, but you're testifying, you're not aware
But I'm
of
not
it.
testifying. I'm
It's about a
asking
health
her.
impact statement. Is the question about?
Yes, it is.
She's
It
not aware of
absolutely
any
is.
health impact statement.
Okay, are you aware? May I ask her?
That's about something else that she said she's not aware of. Or something that she is aware of. That is going to be a much better.
Are you aware of the Blaustein School of Planning, also known as the Rutgers School of Planning, doing research on the adverse outcomes of increasing the density of persons living in multiplex housing have on persons?
Anyone else? Yeah. Anyone else have any questions of this witness? Seeing none. So, I guess you want to introduce some additional documents.
I don't know if I'm going to introduce any additional documents.
Okay, I thought you said you were with the deed.
Are you pushing? I don't know, I just said I don't know.
So you're keeping the case open with respect to the next.
Well, I'm gonna, we have to speak to Mr. Preiss.
Preiss about the COA.
Yeah.
And the fraction.
Maybe, Mr. Steinhagen and I would speak to him together, that might be good.
Okay. Maybe to speak as to the issue, as if you want to do something with the deed.
Yeah, I would have to pull it and find exactly what it is.
Okay. We're not closing this meeting at the moment, so we have to find a good date.
Well, the direct testimony is close.
The direct, well, yeah, but you may need to call someone in to testify that they can do whatever.
Well, the deed of record is not.
I'm just saying, whatever it is,
Right.
maybe there's some
No.
provisions in the deed, I don't know. So far, your experts, so far, have done. I guess that's my point. So, I guess at the next meeting, you will finalize those issues. And then maybe we'll give public your comments.
I just was wondering, are we done with your experts? Because they've been sitting there patiently.
Everybody has said whatever they want to say.
know your experts testified during the hearings previously. I hate to see them.
Okay.
Well, I like to see them. I don't make them sit here for.
What is the next date you have available? December 5th.
We have, school, we have, schools, we have the emergency center, AUCC. We have, November, we have 3 big ones.
November 7th. December 5th.
I requested earlier date. I mean, we're a continued matter. Before other new matters start, I think we need to finish continued matter. We didn't have any testimony in August because your expert couldn't attend. I mean, I don't think it's fair.
October 3rd, but it's a lot of people not going to be heard. Special, no, we have no special number because of the League of Municipalities and Thanksgiving. We have none in December. We have a special meeting on the 19th, and that's for 189 the Plaza. We have another one on October 17th for 189 the Plaza.
What about October 3rd? What do we have on there?
We have 8 cases.
Which one has the anything?
Well,
You know what, let's do it for October 3rd to be determined where we go. Okay, let's carry this matter. Do you have the time for the act necessary in October 3rd? We'll deal with it.
We probably will not be here, but we'll post it. That's fine.
We'll communicate.
Whoever will.
So
That would make for new notice.
we'll carry this application to October 3rd, 7 o'clock, soon thereafter, with no further notice to the public. The meeting may be in these chambers or somewhere else as posted because of seating restrictions or capacity to house people and in a safe manner. So,
There's going to be some really interesting stuff.
okay, so that's the story. Let's, I'll make a motion for that. All again, the second. Any, all in favor? That does not conclude tonight's event. Not finished. Okay, we'll deal with that later. Please, everybody, applicant is done for tonight. We'll go to good and welfare. And let's see if anyone wants to speak to good and welfare. Okay, Mr. Rose, you want to speak to good and welfare, please. Max 3 minutes. Okay, but let's just have somebody. If you want to talk, please take it outside so we can move on. Good, yeah.
Well, just a reminder again, that anybody who wishes to speak to welfare, you have 3 minutes, and please do not speak to this case, because any comments you make cannot be considered in evidence. I'm sure you know that, Mr. Rose.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rose, what happened to you?
I wanted to speak to this case.
No, you know better than that.
So very short to the point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next person, if anyone wants to speak to good and welfare?
2 minutes.
Oh, Mr. Beach. I missed him. Okay, what's your name?
James Beach, and I'll risk having my remarks not in the official record. I want to thank our planner for speaking up on behalf of the residents of Teaneck. Thank you, Ms. Lydon. Thank you.
Okay, next person. Anyone who wish to be heard in good and welfare, please stand in line so we don't close it before everyone who wishes to speak.
Making no reference whatsoever to tonight's case, I'd like to read a little bit from the State Street Impact Study, and just so that the Board of Adjustment has a chance to sort of think through what is discussed here. The proposed development in the study area, of which one project is already complete, is most substantially taller and more dense than the existing development within the State Street area, which is comprised predominantly of low-rise residential apartments and 1- and 2-story retail and mixed-use development. Those projects which have been granted variances or are before the zoning board for use variance approval are substantially larger and taller, reflecting a more urban, downtown character not seen anywhere in Teaneck, and more characteristic of developments in such communities as Fort Lee and Hackensack. The scale and character of the State Street study area will be irreversibly transformed by the development of significantly more dense and taller multifamily residential development that was not contemplated by the Township's current master plan or re-examination reports, which are meant to guide the development of the Township. The cumulative impact of the proposed development within the study area must be considered going forward as such. If development of this type is going to be permitted in the future, it merits a re-examination of the master plan policies and zoning for the State Street area to determine whether such development is appropriate and is designed. I would point out to you that the author of that set of words was also the author of the 2011 and 2014, 2017 master plan re-examination. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person up, Mr. Rose. You have something to say? Please.
Thank you. This is Howard Rose, speaking out as a board member.
Speaking as Howard Rose.
Thank you very much, as a resident. This is just a little bit of constructive criticism, not having to do with types of meetings in general, not just this board, but planning board, council itself. It's in terms of effective communication with microphones. It's a persistent problem, I think, and I'm speaking on behalf of people like me who are hearing impaired, as well as people who have good hearing. If I would tell you that it's most effective using a microphone about 2 inches from your mouth, I'd probably be correct. I would love to take the opportunity to tell you exactly how far away you are from the microphone so that you can improve your communication. Sitting 3 feet away as you are right now, sitting 8 inches as you are, sitting 2 feet as you are, sitting 3 feet as you are, doesn't make you the most effective communicator. We need you. We need your services. You have to hear what we say. We equally have to hear what you say. So that's my statement for the evening. Thank you.
All right, that's it.
Alan, so I went to Catholic school when I was a kid, and when I see someone with a ruler, it gets me all nervous. I want to thank, I think the one person I want to thank is Dr. Pruitt. Dr. Pruitt, as a member of the Township Council, requested that an impact study be performed by the State Street. Not looking at any one of the projects on a standalone basis, but looking on a holistic basis as to how State Street and the surrounding area will be impacted. The person who did this study is Richard Preiss, the Township Planner. As Dr. Powers indicated, Mr. Preiss is a person who was behind in developing 2007 master plan, the 2011 re-examination, the 2014 re-examination, and the 2017 re-examination. And he looked at this. There was a chance to read it for anyone, and he says in his executive summary on the first written page, the proposed development in the study area is substantially taller and much more dense than the existing development in the State Street area, which is comprised predominantly of lower-rise residential apartments and 1- and 2-story retail. Those projects which have been granted variances or are before the zoning board for use variance approval are substantially larger and taller, reflecting a much more urban downtown character not seen anywhere in Teaneck, and more characteristic of such communities as Fort Lee and Hackensack. He continues, at the same time, the scale and character of the State Street study area will be irreversibly transformed by the development of significantly more dense and taller multifamily residential development that was not contemplated by the Township's current master plan or re-examination reports, which are meant to guide development in the Township. The process that we should go through is what Dr. Pruitt has suggested. Let's take a step back. Let's look at what we're doing. Let's reconsider our master plan. Let's see if what we should be doing in Teaneck on a holistic basis. And I want to thank Dr. Pruitt for creating that and giving the entire township an opportunity to see what exactly the impact will be on State Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please. Ma'am?
Juanita Brown, resident of Teaneck. I'm not sure that this is the appropriate time for this question or this statement, but I'm going to try to make it anyway. If buildings are approved and built, but are not fully occupied, how does that improve our rateables and contribute to the taxes being paid by our township? I don't know, like I said, if this is the appropriate place to ask that kind of question, but it's something that needs to be answered, because if we're continuing to build buildings and they're not fully occupied, then what's the point? We're just gonna have empty space? Are they not going to then become dilapidated and, an ugly sight to the towns? Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay, that concludes the next.
Okay, yes, Mr. Lane, we have enough attendance for the special meeting.
For on the 19th, nobody has said to me,
I have said to you, I'm not.
except,
I will be here, presiding.
wait,
Mr.
okay.
Murphy's the office said,
This is on the 19th. Yes. Okay, so on 9/19, we need 5.
no, we need 4 to do the meeting.
Well, we wouldn't do the meeting, but I mean, the
They're
application.
not gonna vote more than one setting.
So you're out,
You are here? Ms. Prince is there? Mr. Coles?
As far as I know, I am. I'm looking for someone.
okay. So only 2 out so far.
Maybe, I'll call you one day, right?
Question, okay.
Okay, and that concludes tonight's meeting.
Motion to adjourn.